They complained loudly. Even Anita Sanchez, a nice woman who works as a librarian, sympathized with them. 6 Baylor Lake High School cheerleaders complained about how difficult it was to find a good man, a decent man, a man who would love and respect them. Jared Browsard burst out laughing, and all 6 18-year-old girls, as well as the 31-year-old woman, turned to look at him. 2 girls looked curious at his laughter, 2 or 3 looked annoyed, and the rest looked with obvious contempt. He wasn't an ugly guy. He had thick, wavy hair, warm brown eyes, and a sweet smile. But since Jared Browsard had no athletic ability and his handsome face belonged to a thin, short body, girls never paid him any attention. "Oh, why is it so difficult? Why can't I find a good guy?" Jared mimicked. Now everyone looked at him with anger. "Why were you eavesdropping?" Tammy Hale asked angrily, her dislike for Jared evident in every word. "Didn't eavesdrop. It's impossible not to hear your crying, yapping dogs," Jared spat, showing them his headphones. "I tried to listen to Priest, but unless I turn the volume all the way up and hurt my hearing, I can still hear you." Crying. Ariel was indignant. "Yelp is like my mom's annoying little Pomeranian," Jared confirmed. "Do you want to know why you stuck-up bitches can't find a good man?" Jared spat, no longer smiling. "Eh? Do you really want to know?" "Oh, enlighten us," Tamara said mockingly. "Because you idiots keep pushing us away," Jared said. He pointed to Eric Miller, a fat guy with a face covered in acne, who was writing something in a spiral notebook. "Eric is one of the kindest guys I know," Jared said. "Did you know that he is a published poet?" "Of course not, because he doesn't look like Richie Talbot." "Richie? Seriously, a grown man, 18 years old, and still called Richie. Grow up. He's not big and beefy like Tommy, another 18-year-old who still runs around with a boy's name. He doesn't ride a motorcycle like Billy." Jared then pointed to Clifton, a tall, thin guy who also suffered from skin problems. "Or Clifton, did you know he went to the University of Southern California on a full scholarship? Of course not. He has maintained a 5.0 GPA for the past 3 years. But Rochelle, I heard you laugh in his face when he asked you to the school dance. You went with Tommy instead. How did you like that black eye he gave you? And why did he give it to you? Eh? Oh yeah, because you didn't want to have an abortion, right?" Rochelle looked depressed, then ran out of the room. "It's a shame you had a miscarriage, but they say that kicking you in the stomach can cause it," Jared called after her. "Enough, Mr. Browsard," Anita Sanchez warned. "Come on, fat ass, give me a reprimand," Jared insulted the plump woman. "You know they call you that behind your back, right? These arrogant bitches pretend to be your friends to your face and laugh at you behind your back." Through the noise of indignant cries of, "That's not true," and "You're such an asshole," Jared continued his tirade. "Jack asked you out, didn't he, April? And why didn't you go with him?" "Oh yeah, because I was with Chad." "Where is Chad now?" "Oh, exactly. He is dating Sandra. Even after you pleased the dealer for the sake of illegal substances for him. God, why can't you find a man who respects you? I really wonder about this." April looked horrified as several people in the library looked at her. Then she burst into tears. "Oh, why can't I find a good man? I'll tell you why," Jared shouted in the quiet room. "Because you're too damn selfish to notice the good guys standing right in front of you." He grabbed his textbooks. "You know what? You deserve the crap you get. You deserve to be deceived, beaten. You deserve it. You brought it on yourself. Yes, yes, fat-bottomed, I will come to my punishment. See you," Jared said and left the library. 3 hours later, Jared walked into Mr. Cousin's office. The science teacher raised his head and looked at him, smiling in bewilderment. "Did you want to see me, Mr. Browsard?" he asked quietly as other students began to come in for their hour-long punishment. Yeah, thought Miss Sanchez sent a note," Jared replied. "No, no, I didn't see anything," Mr. Cousin said, looking through a stack of notes sent in by other teachers. "See you later," Jared smiled. "God, what an idiot you are," Leslie Webb, one of the cheerleaders, hissed angrily as they passed each other. Go to hell, Lassie, I mean Leslie, Jared snapped back. I'm not into girls, Leslie screamed and pushed Jared. What? Jared pretended to be surprised by her outburst. Miss Webb, for using force against another student, Mr. Cousins said, already writing out a punishment note for an attractive girl. But he called me names. Leslie began to cry, tears streaming down her beautiful face. For real? Is this true? Are we 6 years old? Mr. Cousins asked reproachfully. I called her Leslie, but apparently it's something terrible, Jared said with a smile. This is not true. Leslie was indignant. Jared barely made it to his bus before bus number 144 pulled away from Baylor Lake School. He was grateful for this, since otherwise he would have had to walk 2.5 kilometers to his small home in Baylor Lake, Louisiana. Belinda Browsard, his mother, greeted him when he entered the room. "Oh, why don't these girls surround you in a crowd?" asked his mother, running her hand tenderly through his thick hair. "Do their guide dogs constantly get in the way?" Jared suggested. "A letter came from the technical school," she said. "Oh God, I hope," Jared said, tearing open the envelope. "Yes," he shouted after a moment. "Welding class. I passed the test. I will become a welder." The next day, Jared gathered his courage and approached Leslie as she put her lunchbox away in her locker. "Leslie, look, I'm sorry," he said. "It was ugly of me." "Yes, it was," she squealed and stamped her foot. "And because of you, I received another punishment. All I have to do is get one more, and I'll be suspended, asshole." Jared then went to Mr. Cousins and told the teacher what had really happened and why Leslie had reacted the way she did. "But she still had no reason to touch you," Mr. Cousins remarked. "But she was provoked," Jared objected. Okay, Mr. Browsard, I'll tear up this note," the teacher said. Leslie came to her punishment, but was shocked when Mr. Cousins informed her that there would be no punishment. "Mr. Browsard came and told me what happened," he said as other students began to enter the office for their punishment. Leslie called April and told her best friend what happened. April told Tammy Hale, and the red-haired beauty thought for a minute. If this happened to her, Chad or Billy, especially Billy, would make sure Tammy earned another punishment. 3 weeks before graduation, with all the last-minute assignments, prep, tests, and little opportunity for extra work, a suspension could be disastrous for someone with a solid C-, and Billy would have fun watching Tammy try to make things right. By the time most of the cheerleaders sat down to dinner that evening, they knew what Jared Browsard had done. He stood up for one of them, did the right thing. "But he's still an asshole," Tammy Rochelle muttered. "What kind of crap was that in the library, really?" Tammy spoke into space for almost 3 minutes until she realized that the connection had been lost. She called Rochelle back, but she didn't answer and the call went to voicemail. "Ha ha," Tammy laughed into the phone. "I talked and talked here, but you didn't even hear me. Call me back, love you." Rochelle didn't continue the conversation. She closed the phone, ending the connection, and wiped away a tear. She was so happy that she even sang with joy when she saw the small, positive sign on the test. Child. A wonderful little child. If it were a girl, she could teach her how to play hopscotch. They would dress up together, go to ballet lessons. If it were a boy, he would be big and handsome, like Tommy. They would name their son Trey because Tommy is actually Thomas Hewall Jr. and Trey would be Thomas Hewall Roman III. And Tommy would teach Trey how to throw and catch a ball, and they would be her two big handsome men. "This is not my child," Tommy spat, his handsome face contorted with bitterness. When he finally admitted that the child was his, he demanded that she have an abortion. "What? Tommy," Rochelle sobbed. "This is our child. How can you kill?" The blow to the face nearly knocked her unconscious. A brutal kick to the stomach led to loss of consciousness. She regained consciousness at University Medical Center in Lafayette, Louisiana. When police from DeGard and Lafayette contacted Tommy Hewall Jr. about his girlfriend's injuries and her spontaneous miscarriage, the young man said he knew nothing. They were at a party, had a fight, and she left. What happened to her next, he had no idea. but if you catch that bastard," he said, tears of pain streaming down his handsome face. Rochelle did break up with Tommy, but he whined, begged, apologized, and promised that everything would be better. Over time, she forgave him, and the make-up sex was far from impressive. He just climbed on top of it, gave it 4 or 5 thrusts, and went off to get some beer with Billy, Chad, and Mikey. Now, 3 weeks before their graduation, Rochelle Esposito was wiping away more tears. If it weren't for Tommy, she would already be 7 or 8 months pregnant. The baby would happily push against his mother's tummy. They would choose names if it was a girl. Gloria, that was my grandmother's name, Rochelle sobbed, remembering her beloved grandmother. They graduated from high school, and many went to graduation parties, promising each other that they would keep in touch, that they would be friends forever. Almost no one noticed that Eric Miller, Jared Browsard, Clifton, Jack, or Barry didn't show up to any of the company's parties. A few parents did notice. "Tammy, you invited Clifton Abrams, right?" Mrs. Hale asked her daughter. "What a wonderful speech this young man made." "Clifton, yeah, as if I would invite this loser," Tammy said contemptuously. "Loser." Her mother let out a contemptuous laugh. "Tammy, full academic scholarship to USC. Where did Mikey go?" "Oh yeah, nowhere." Summer dragged on slowly. Those few who had plans for college gradually dispersed. Those who had no such plans were reluctant to try to find work in the small town. They had to compete with other recent graduates, college graduates, and even experienced workers who found themselves out of work and desperately looking for a new one. The 2009 economy was sluggish at best. Jared worked hard, studied hard, and was soon hired by an oil company. He began learning underwater welding, which was dangerous work and required not only welding skills, but also diving training. But this profession was in high demand on the oil rigs, and Jared never had a shortage of work. In fact, it happened that he had just returned from the rig when he received a radio message from the shore that he was urgently called to another platform due to an accident. Jared had just returned from several weeks of work at sea when his mother passed him a note. It said, "Call Leslie Webb." He did so, and Leslie squealed happily. She chatted for a few minutes, telling him the latest gossip about what happened to classmates that Jared didn't care about. Finally, he interrupted her flow of happiness. Leslie, why are you telling me all this?" he asked. "Jared Michael Browsard, I didn't raise you to talk like that, no," his mother said. "Oh, well, I mean," Leslie hesitated, taken aback by his abruptness. "Seriously, Leslie, I just got back. I'm all sweaty, tired. All I want is to take a shower and die. So if there's something important, get to the point," Jared sighed, turning away from his mother's disapproving gaze. "Well, that is Tammy. You remember Tammy, right? She's throwing a party tomorrow. I mean, nothing special, just getting together," Leslie explained, stuttering. Jared motioned for her to hurry up, but said nothing. "So you want to go?" Leslie finally asked. "What? For what?" Jared was sincerely surprised. Leslie came up with some lame reason, and Jared shrugged, surprising himself. "Okay, I'll pick you up at 8, at 8:30, he suggested. "Well, I, thought. Do you like Mexican food? There's one place there in Bender," Leslie suggested hesitantly. "At Manny's? Best salsa ever," Jared agreed. "Great, fine, then I'll pick you up at 7, okay?" After Jared hung up, his mother began to scold him for being rude on the phone, for being abrupt. But at the same time, she was delighted that her handsome son was finally going on a date. "And this is your first date?" she exclaimed. "Mom, Denise LeBlanc," Jared reminded her. "HM? Oh yes, exactly. What happened to her?" "Such a sweet girl, yes. She committed suicide," Jared reminded her. Jared dressed in jeans and a t-shirt as usual, but Belinda made him change into a nice shirt and trousers. Clay Webb, Leslie's father, looked with contempt at the young man who claimed to be going on a date with his daughter. The guy was neatly dressed, he had no unkempt stubble, no visible tattoos, and he didn't smell of cigarettes or alcohol. In short, he was a nerd, A nerd, not cool enough to be Leslie Webb's boyfriend. Dad, Leslie squealed. For the 10 minutes they talked, Clay looked at Jared with contempt. Here's a guy who still lives with his mother. He has a regular income, so why does he drive this junk Toyota instead of a decent car like a Dodge Challenger or a Chevy Camaro? Bye, Leslie said, dragging Jared out of the Webb house. We won't see him again, Clay told his wife Darlene. A girl needs a real man, not some weakling whom she can twist as she wants. Did you see how he allowed her to push him out of the house? A real man wouldn't do that. Darlene shook her head, holding her tongue. Clay was the same as Tommy, Mikey, or Charlie, Leslie's ex-boyfriends. Clayton George Webb also peaked at school, but it took him almost 20 years to realize that he was no longer in school. Their only source of income was Darlene's inheritance from her father, and if her father had not placed strict restrictions on the use of this money, Clay would have squandered it long ago. What? Clay demanded when Darlene didn't answer. Is it wrong to want the best for your daughter? That's all my dad wanted, Darlene agreed. Well, at least you have me, Clay boasted smugly. Uh-huh, Darlene replied. While Darlene pondered how she could fall in love with Clay and why she'd let him get her pregnant in the first place, Leslie chatted nonstop as Jared took them to Manny's. Her happiness both amused and confused Jared. He once asked Leslie out on a date. He had just gotten his driver's license and bought an old Cadillac Supreme from his uncle. Leslie then laughed in his face and said that even if he were the last man on earth, she would not go with him. Now Jared looked at her outfit. His mother made him wear a decent shirt and trousers, while Leslie wore shorts, a simple blouse, and flip-flops. Leslie was delighted when they parked at Manny's. Charlie or Mikey would agree to go to Manny's, but at the last moment they would say that they would still go to the Clark Drive-In or to the Taste of Sicily restaurant, which she hated. Jared opened the car door for her, helped her out, and held the heavy glass door of the restaurant open. He let her order first and even gave her his glass of water when the hot salsa burned her throat. So, Leslie, he finally interrupted her chatter, it's not that I'm against it, but the last time I asked you out on a date, you said that you wouldn't go with me even if I were the last man on earth. The cheerful smile disappeared from her face. She looked down at the table and then back up at it. Yes, well, I was wrong then, she admitted. She took his hands, rough, calloused hands, and even turned his palm to get a better look at his calluses. God, what rough hands you have, she remarked. These are the costs of the profession. I wear gloves, but still, Jared shrugged. Do you remember when you went to Mr. Cousins and told him that I didn't deserve such a punishment? Asked Leslie. Yes, Jared replied, although he barely remembered that moment. Billy would definitely have done everything to ensure that I received another punishment and would have gotten me suspended, Leslie admitted. And it took you almost 2 years to say thank you, Jared chuckled as she ran her finger over his palm. When they arrived at Tammy's party, Leslie's cheerful mood returned again. At school, Jared Browsard had little in common with the popular crowd. 2 years later, he still had little in common with them. Tommy and Charlie loudly bragged about how much they could lift. Billy showed off his latest prison tattoo to Chad, Mikey, and Richie, and the girls disappeared into Tammy's bedroom to laugh, talk, and gossip. Browsard, how much can you lift? Chad asked contemptuously. I don't know, I've never tried it, Jared answered honestly. I think Wayne still has some weights in his garage, suggested Tammy's then-boyfriend, Richie. $100 and I'll lift 100 pounds more than you and do twice as many reps, Tommy challenged him. Jared shrugged. He was still skinny, but he was used to carrying his welding equipment and diving gear, and Tommy looked a little softer than at school. He now had a noticeable belly hanging over his belt. Okay, let's say I lift 100 pounds 20 times, Jared clarified. You say you can lift 200 pounds 40 times, right? That's right, Tommy replied contemptuously. The girls poured out of Tammy's bedroom and headed to the garage. Jared showed them his 100-ruble bill, and Tommy had to literally beg for money from others to collect his $100. Jared said, checking the 100-pound weight. Let's add another 100. Tommy started to get nervous when Jared easily lifted 200 pounds and did 25 reps in a row. Leslie hugged Jared, jumping excitedly for joy. Jared smiled at her, and she kissed him square on the lips. Jared smiled, clearly amused by what was happening. At school, Leslie Webb paid him absolutely no attention, and now she was literally clinging to him. After kissing her, Jared briefly wondered if her sudden attention had something to do with the fact that he was the only man in this cramped, hot garage who had a job. Tommy began to worry. He once lifted 300 pounds, and once even lifted it to 325, but was only able to do 10 repetitions. And that was over a year ago. The sight of Rochelle looking worried only angered Tommy. Of course, 43 of his $100 was her money, and she complained that it would be at least 2 more weeks before she could earn more. He was also annoyed by the smirks of Chad and Billy, who were just waiting for him to lose. Especially Chad, who wanted to take advantage of the situation and prove to Rochelle that her boyfriend was a real loser. Chad has stated more than once that he would like to pin Rochelle to the wall. "Good luck," Tommy said mockingly. "This bitch won't let me get anywhere close." "Does he let you in?" "PFFT, buddy. You don't have to ask them. They just have to endure it." Chad laughed derisively. "You think April gives me a choice when I want her in the ass?" This bitch can't argue back. "Seriously, dude? Is that what you do?" Richie was truly impressed. "Come on, back me up," Tommy said to Billy. "Okay," Billy agreed. Tommy was only able to do 8 reps before Billy had to intervene and return the bar to the racks. Rochelle walked out of the garage, angry, and a minute later they heard the front door slam. "Well, how many times can you lift it, huh?" Tommy shouted, laughing at Billy. "More than you, weakling," Billy replied with a grin. And then Jared shocked everyone by refusing to take the money. Leslie proudly kissed her man and, satisfied, pressed her 34C breasts against him. Alcohol flowed like a river, but Jared hardly drank, sipping 1 bottle of beer throughout the evening. The others drank as quickly as they could, as if they were trying to prevent others from taking more than themselves. Chad and Billy continued to tease Tommy about how Jared had humiliated him. "Damn, he made you into a nonentity right in front of Rochelle's eyes," Chad said. "Yes." Tommy looked around angrily in search of Rochelle. "Where is this bitch?" "She left after Browser made you his slave," Billy reminded. "Hey, why don't you go and please your new master?" Jared was bored out of his mind. Once upon a time, back in school, he dreamed of becoming part of this company, sitting on Tammy's couch, next to April or Leslie beautiful girls. He wanted to be with Chad and Tommy and Richie, telling stories about who they slept with. Now it all seemed childish and stupid to him. None of them could talk about their work. They simply didn't have it. The only one who had a job was Richie, and he was a dishwasher at a local restaurant. There were rumors that this restaurant would close soon. Chad once worked at a gas station for Tommy's father, but was fired for stealing money from the cash register. Charlie attended the University of Louisiana at DeGard, undecided on his direction. He despised Jared for going to technical school instead of a real university. None of the girls worked, with the exception of Rochelle, who worked at Taco Bell while studying at the same university. But she left the party. "Listen, Leslie, I think I'm still on the platform schedule," Jared finally said. "Okay," Leslie agreed without objection. Tommy made some rude remarks to Jared, but Jared ignored his drunken outbursts. In the car, Leslie placed her small hand directly on his groin. "It's a pity you didn't take that money," she cooed. "We could get a room at the DeGard Inn, you know." "Acadiana is cheaper," Jared retorted. Losing his virginity didn't turn out to be as wonderful and magical an event for Jared as he imagined it would be. But for Leslie, it was apparently magic. "And damn it, you're a lot bigger than I thought," she praised, and then tried to please him again. They met twice more before Leslie gave him the "it's not you, it's me" speech. But like losing his virginity, her passing wasn't as dramatic for Jared as he imagined it to be in his head. He loved learning how to please a woman. He loved discovering the art of love. He especially liked the unusual sex. He liked to listen to Leslie moaning and puffing. But Jared realized that sex was all that connected them. He had a job, a profession, an occupation. He could talk about different types of welding, how to join different composites, and Leslie could only discuss television shows. When he returned home to his mother after 3.5 weeks of work at sea, his mother again gave him a note. It said, "Call Rochelle L. Esposito." "Mom, her name is Rochelle, not Rochelle L. Esposito," Jared said, laughing. Rochelle learned that a few days after that party, even though Jared won, he refused to take the money. She immediately called Tommy. "Hey, asshole, where's my 43 bucks?" she demanded. "What? Oh, yes." Tommy drawled. "Well, damn it, I lost, you know." Then Rochelle bitterly told him that Jared didn't take the money, and Tommy started mumbling excuses about where her money went. "You owe me 43 bucks, asshole," she snapped. Usually Tommy was able to persuade Rochelle to follow his lead, but this time she was adamant. She demanded that her money be returned, and when, almost 3 weeks later, he finally, reluctantly, paid her back, she told him she'd had enough. She got fed up with his jobless life without goals or ambitions and left him. A strange number appeared on her phone, and Rochelle carefully answered. "Hello?" Tommy often called from other people's phones to try to contact her. Leslie Webb happily dated Tommy Hewall, but Leslie had even less money than he did, and Tommy soon realized how much he needed Rochelle. "Hello, Rochelle. This is Jared." Jared browsered. "My mom said you called," Jared said. "About. Hello. How are you?" Rochelle was surprised. They agreed to meet to go to Cowboy's barbecue and then to Joy's 4-movie theater in Algie, Louisiana. "Okay, I'll pick you up at 6:30. "Do you still live on Magnolia Way?" Jared asked. "Yes," Rochelle replied, surprised that he knew where she lived. This date led to a second, and then a third, after which Jared left for the rig again. Meanwhile, Tommy continued to try to win Rochelle back, but she made it clear enough for him to leave her. The note from the mother again said, "Call Rochelle L. Esposito," and mother and son laughed about it. When Jared called Rochelle, she was in class, and it was almost an hour later that she called him back. They agreed to meet the next evening because Rochelle was working at Taco Bell that day. Jared met Francis and Connie Esposito, Rochelle's parents, and they unanimously agreed that Jared was a huge improvement over Thomas Hewall Jr. They went to Sweet Peas for plates of fried catfish. When Jared opened the car door for Rochelle, she pressed herself against him. "Have you ever been to the Hewall Dam area?" she asked with a hint. "No," Jared replied. "You don't mind?" Rochelle looked at him again, letting him know what she meant. "It's kind of school-like, right? Why don't we just go to Acadiana?" Jared suggested. The motel was cheap but clean. The mattress on the bed was hard, the blanket was old, and the pillows were uncomfortable. But they didn't come there for decor or comfort. It was a bed, a place to be alone, and it was much more comfortable than the back seat of Rochelle's car, especially since Tommy had totaled his car in an accident earlier that year. Jared kissed Rochelle tenderly as he helped her take off her blouse. He looked at her standing there in a simple white bra and khaki shorts, enjoying the sight of her. Then he smiled again and kissed her. Each time, taking off another piece of clothing from her, he looked at her, smiled, and kissed her tenderly. When she was completely naked, Jared began to undress as well. As he pulled down his underwear, Rochelle laughed. Jared immediately lost his excitement and reached out in frustration to put his boxers back on. "No, no, don't, Jared. I wasn't laughing at you," Rochelle hastened to assure him. She grabbed his hands. "No, no, dear, no," she protested. She kissed him on the lips. "I was just thinking about Tommy." "He always bragged about how big he was," Rochelle said, then made a comical movement of her hips, imitating Tommy. Then she kissed Jared again. "And now I see you, and you are no less than him?" Rochelle smiled. She began to gently stroke him, kissing him, trying to return him to his previous state. "I was laughing at him, dear, at him, not at you," she assured. They fell on the bed and kissed passionately. Rochelle noticed that Jared was different from Tommy. He appreciated her body, her breasts, but his touches were affectionate, gentle, and not rough and hard. He didn't grab her small belly, calling her fat, as if Tommy had the right to say that. After graduation, he gained almost 30 pounds and went from a size 30 to a 34 waist. The next time they arrived at the Acadiana Motel, Jared insisted on a new position. For the third time, Jared introduced Rochelle to unusual sex. "Damn, we'll definitely do this again," Rochelle exclaimed joyfully. Jared and Rochelle dated for 3 months. Jared constantly expected her to give him that "it's not you, it's me" speech, or that they were moving too fast and should start dating others. He seriously considered bringing up the topic himself. Rochelle was beautiful, she was sexy, and she seemed to like his mother, which was very important to Jared. But besides sex, they had nothing in common. She was a beautiful girl, but in terms of interests and outlook on life, they turned out to be too different. Rochelle studied at the university and believed that since she was a student, this automatically made her a little smarter than him, although he was already earning good money in a dangerous but in-demand job. Plus, she was still in contact with Tammy, Tamara, April, and Leslie, which meant she was still in the company of Chad, Richie, Billy, and her ex-boyfriend Tommy. Jared didn't expect Rochelle to completely cut ties with her childhood friends, but it bothered him that she continued to so easily be in the same company with an ex-boyfriend who took her for granted, cheated on her more than once, stole money from her, and even cheated on her. Her hand. One day, after 3.5 weeks of work at sea, Jared returned home and found another note from his mother. "Call Rochelle L. Esposito." It was written in the same neat handwriting, and they both laughed at it again. When Jared called Rochelle, she said they needed to talk. "Thank God," Jared almost said out loud, relieved that he would no longer have to wait for the inevitable. "Okay, dear, when and where?" he asked calmly, forcing himself to remain polite. "I think I'll come to my house. My parents will be home at 6. Is that okay for you?" Rochelle said. "Of course," Jared agreed. Belinda, his mother, sat and watched another episode of General Hospital. Jared has learned not to interrupt her until the commercial starts. During the commercial break, he told her that he was going to see Rochelle and her parents that evening. "It looks like she wants to break up with me," he admitted. "Oh," Belinda replied, "this is, of course, a pity." "Yeah, I guess," Jared muttered. "I've been waiting for this for a long time." "Why do you think so?" asked the mother, frowning slightly. Jared took a shower, then got some sleep, then dressed in gray pants and a black sweater. He kissed his mother goodbye and drove to Rochelle's house. "I'm pregnant," Rochelle announced as soon as Jared entered. "Oh," was all Jared could say, stunned by what he heard. "Is that all you can say?" Francis, Rochelle's father, asked sharply, clearly not hiding his anger. "A child is a big responsibility," Jared said slowly and deliberately. "You're damn right," Francis grumbled, his irritation becoming more and more obvious. "Well, baby, what are you thinking about?" Rochelle asked, her blue eyes anxiously searching his deep brown eyes for an answer. They got married on a chilly January day with their entire group of friends in attendance. The girls squealed and lamented that Rochelle was the first of them to get married. The guys grinned and mocked Tommy, joking that his girlfriend was getting married, but not to him. At a small wedding reception, Belinda first addressed Rochelle as Mrs. Browsard, but Rochelle immediately corrected her. Actually, it's Esposito Browsard." "Oh, how's that? So our last name isn't good enough for her?" Belinda whispered to Jared with obvious indignation. "Hey, this is the first I've heard of this," Jared defended himself. "No, it's just, I'm married, but that doesn't mean that I completely lose my personality, right?" Rochelle justified herself. A young couple bought a 3-bedroom house in Digard and began furnishing it in preparation for the birth of their child. Jared often joked that he went to work to take a little break from endless renovation projects, sanding, painting, cleaning. But he didn't tell Rochelle that another reason he was glad to go to work was to get away from her friends and their childish conversations. He didn't like that his house was still open to her ex-boyfriend Tommy. Leslie Webb seemed to take pleasure in reminding everyone in the group that she had once dated Jared. Often she even offered her help when Rochelle, already in the late stages of pregnancy, could not have sex. Instead of getting angry, Rochelle just grinned as Leslie playfully made eyes at Jared. But this flirting game made him very uncomfortable. He startled the entire group by demanding that Leslie stop it or leave their house. "She's just joking," Rochelle quickly interceded. "Leslie, tell him you're just kidding." Gloria Ann Browsard was born 5 months after Jared and Rochelle's wedding and quickly became a daddy's girl. As soon as the baby heard her father's voice, her warm brown eyes began to search for him around the room, and when she saw him, she smiled her toothless smile. "Yes, Daddy, she was just a horror the whole period while you were away," Rochelle said. "This is true?" Jared asked, turning to his daughter. "Have you been a bad girl for your mother? Eh? Did you deliberately make the diapers even smellier?" Gloria learned to crawl, then walk, and then run at incredible speed. She did not listen to her mother. Her requests to stop or return to her caused only cheerful giggles. But when Jared told her to stop or go back, Gloria would immediately stop running and return to her father. I hate you with all my heart, do you hear?" Rochelle hissed every time Jared chuckled at her helplessness. When Gloria was almost 2 years old, they learned that Rochelle was pregnant again. She was not happy about this news. She had just returned to classes at the university and decided that her specialty would be related to pedagogy. Having a second child would again put her plans on hold until the baby was weaned. However, despite all this, both were happy about this event. Jared enthusiastically said about preparing the third bedroom for the new baby. "And you will become an older sister," Rochelle told Gloria. "You will help Mom with the baby, right?" "Yes," Gloria nodded with a serious look. "I will hold him in my arms and rock him." One day, Jared returned home after another 3.5 weeks of work at sea. Rochelle was with Tammy, April, and Leslie. Gloria had just gone to bed for the day. Only Jared could put her to bed. Rochelle couldn't calm her down. Tammy complained that her next date with a man who was a little older was a disaster. "He turned out to be a complete asshole," she said indignantly. "Can you imagine? At the end, he just shook my hand and said, 'Well, don't disappear.' Can you believe it?" Jared laughed. 4 pairs of eyes stared at him with irritation. "Oh my God, are you serious?" Jared asked mockingly. "You assessed him according to your own selfish criteria to decide whether to sleep with him, and then you are surprised that he turned out to be a selfish, narcissistic jerk. Seriously, does he have to be here?" Tammy asked Rochelle displeasedly. "Yes, he should be here," Jared chimed in, getting a beer from the fridge. "He pays the bills in this house. He mows the lawn. He fills the refrigerator with food. So yes, he must be here." "Okay, but the sex was amazing," Tammy continued. "Sex is always amazing for guys," Jared interrupted again. "But the question is, why should he be content with only you if he can get you and 3 more of your friends?" "God, what an idiot you are," Tammy snorted at Rochelle. "No wonder you're still having sex with Tommy." Jared looked sharply at his wife. The look of horror on her face told Jared everything he needed to know. The look of shock on Leslie and April's faces and the triumphant smile on Tammy's face confirmed his worst fears. It was true, and the company knew all about it. "I'm leaving for the rig on Thursday," Jared calmly told his wife. "It will be at least 2 weeks before I return." "Jared, honey, it was just." Rochelle began to justify herself. "By the time I get back, you won't be here," he said calmly but firmly. With that, he turned and walked through the kitchen into the garage. "Oh God, oh Tammy, why? Why did you do this?" Rochelle moaned. Everyone heard the garage door open. Then they heard Jared's pickup start. "What?" "He asked for it," Tammy defended herself. "And me? Did I ask for it myself?" Rochelle screamed. The truck took off with a squeal. "I didn't close the door," April noted. Rochelle decided she wouldn't move. She and Gloria will stay in the house. They'll talk to Jared when he gets home from work. But Teresa White handed the young woman the papers. One of them was a petition for divorce. The other contained an order to vacate the premises. The third paper really hit Rochelle. She scared her. The third document required a paternity test for Gloria, and after the birth of their second daughter, it was necessary to conduct a paternity test for the baby. When Rochelle was dating Tommy, his mother showed her some childhood photographs of Tommy. There were many similarities between Gloria's brown eyes and Tommy's brown eyes. Baby Tommy had an adorable dimple on his right cheek. Gloria had a cute little dimple on her right cheek. However, there were also many similarities between the childhood photographs of Jared and Gloria. Penny Richards of the law offices of Richards, Pellichet, and Richards was retained to represent Jared Michael Browsard in the divorce case between Browsard and Esposito Browsard. "Come on, Gloria, we're going to our grandparents," Rochelle called. "No," answered Gloria. "Yes," Rochelle said, leaning down to pick up the baby. "No," Gloria repeated, running away. "Damn it, Gloria, I don't have time for this nonsense," Rochelle exploded, chasing after her wayward daughter. Connie helped Rochelle calm the crying little girl while Rochelle talked to her father. Connie had just calmed Gloria when Francis burst into the kitchen. "Go talk to that daughter of yours," he barked at his wife. He took the beer out of the refrigerator. "I can't believe it," he growled. Rochelle sat on the couch, sobbing. "Damn it, so much money for college, and you do such a damn stupid thing," Francis yelled from the kitchen. Connie hugged her daughter and stroked her back. When Rochelle calmed down a little, Connie looked at the papers. "Oh God, no, Rochelle, a divorce?" Connie gasped. "Ask her why," Francis shouted. "Ask her why her husband, a good man, wants to divorce her." "Francis, that's enough," Connie called. "Eviction, he can't force you to move out. This is your home too, right?" Connie gasped, reading the first lines of the second document. But when Rochelle's mother read the first paragraph of the third document, she said nothing. She simply looked at her daughter, stood up, and left the room. "No, this is your daughter," she said to Francis. "You go and talk to your daughter." Despite their disappointment in their daughter, Francis and Connie still lent Rochelle $2,000, which Sophia Coutret took for her services. They said it was a loan, although they knew they would never see the money. "He can't force you to move out," Sophia confirmed, "but if you stay, you will be responsible for half the cost of maintaining the house. Without a job, without a stable income, it will be difficult for you to maintain a home." Looking at the demand for a DNA test for Gloria and the unborn child, Sophia looked at Rochelle, keeping a straight face. "Is there a chance that at least one of the children is not his?" Sophia asked. "Yes, ma'am," Rochelle admitted, blushing. Jared was at sea, and the records confirmed that he was on the platform. But someone who knew how to work a welder welded the doors on Tommy's pickup. Someone who knew how to use an acetylene torch cut the drive shaft on Tammy's car. She backed out of her yard and then put it into gear to find that her sports car was no longer moving. Even though she had a Taylor Swift record playing, she heard a clanging sound as the drive shaft hit the pavement. Someone sawed off the front fork of Billy's motorcycle. The first bump at 40 miles an hour tore off the fork, and Billy flew forward. The helmet saved his life, but his face was horribly disfigured from hitting the pavement. Someone welded up Chad's steering rack. He tried to turn the steering wheel left and right, but the front of the car would not move. The car could only go forward or backward. Charlie, Richie, Mikey, Leslie, Tamara, and April were going crazy with paranoia. Nothing happened to their cars. But will that day come today? Maybe their car will explode today when they get into it, or will the brakes suddenly fail? When Jared was expected to arrive, Rochelle went home to wait for him. A quick call to Fontenot Equipment and Services confirmed that Jared Browsard was back. He was on the boat at 2:30. If the boat picked him up from the platform at 2:30, he would usually arrive at the Industrial Canal by 4 o'clock, or at most by 4:30, then a 45-minute journey by car. But by 8 o'clock in the evening, Jared still had not returned. Rochelle took her clothes, Gloria's clothes and toys, and her daughter's furniture from the house when she moved back in with her parents. Now, at 8 o'clock in the evening, she was walking around the house. It seemed to her that she was seeing him for the first time. The bed was still in the bedroom, but Rochelle now noticed that there were no pillows. The decorative towels she'd bought were still hanging in the bathroom, but Jared's razor, deodorant, and cologne were gone. The closet was also empty. But he was at sea. He couldn't, Rochelle sobbed. Belinda, she hissed. Rock El Esposito browser called you, Belinda said, calling Jared on his new cell phone. What did you tell her? Jared asked as the lights of Houston appeared in his rearview mirror. The truth, you're not here, his mother answered. After Gloria was born, a company offered Jared a 6-month contract to work on the Alaska pipeline. Rochelle didn't even consider the offer, even though the salary was almost 4 times what he had received at sea. In truth, Jared wasn't very sophisticated. It would mean 6 months away from his little girl, with only a few days off when he could fly home to see her. And having lived in southwest Louisiana all his life, Jared wasn't sure he was prepared for the harsh Alaskan winter. But now he had no reason to refuse. And when it's all over, the divorce will also be completed, he reassured himself. Chris Fontenot of Fontenot Equipment and Services was instructed by Jared not to tell Rochelle that Jared no longer worked there. But Chris had a soft spot for crying pregnant women and eventually admitted that Jared had quit. Hell, I even offered him a job on land or in the workshop, Chris admitted. You know, of course, these are pennies compared to how much an underwater welder earns. But he simply said it was time for him to move on. The 59-year-old then gave Rochelle goosebumps by offering to help her if she ever needed it. Jared was smart enough not to tell Chris Fontenot where he was going. Chris told Rochelle the truth. Welding work is in demand not only in the oil industry, but in almost any industrial field. A person with skills like Browsard? Yes, he has no restrictions on where he can go, you know, said Chris. With tears in her eyes, Rochelle had to tell Sophia that she needed to withdraw the request for mandatory counseling. Since they didn't know where Jared was and Belinda wouldn't tell him, they couldn't force him to go to counseling. Gloria's paternity test revealed that Jared Browsard was not her father, but he also revealed that Tommy Huvel Jr. was not her father either. Tommy hit Rochelle so hard he knocked out a tooth, and Chad Theriault grumbled and threatened, but still gave samples for a DNA test. What? Chad shouted as Teresa White, Penny Richards' courier, handed him papers stating that Jared Browsard was suing him for failure to pay child support. How the hell am I supposed to pay for this? Here's an idea, get a job, Teresa suggested. What about my car, huh? Chad shouted. Okay, I give up, Teresa said. What's wrong with your car? She doesn't turn, and I'm still paying for her, Chad growled angrily. Life goes on, dude, Teresa shrugged and got into her car. While Chad was trying to find a legal precedent that would allow him to avoid paying child support, Rochelle was trying to use her daughter to get information. Belinda loved being a grandmother and loved her granddaughter. It really hurt her to learn that she was not related to the smart little girl and probably had nothing to do with the baby growing in Rochelle's belly. Please, Miss Belinda, Rochelle sobbed as Belinda fussed over Gloria. I don't want a divorce. And my Jared didn't want his wife to be a girl of easy virtue, Belinda answered. Looks like no one gets what they want, huh? Miss Belinda, I made a mistake, okay? You think you've never made a mistake, right? Rochelle asked angrily. Belinda stared at Rochelle's bulging belly, then at her flushed face. Then she went back to singing Cajun songs for Gloria. Rochelle grabbed her daughter and prepared to leave. Tell Grandma bye, Rochelle said sharply. Belinda's smirk angered Rochelle even more. She slammed the front door. As soon as Belinda closed the front door of the house, a few tears rolled down her face. Why, Lord, why can't she be my Jared's baby, huh? You know I'm a good grandmother, Belinda whispered pleadingly. Kathleen Ann Esposito was born almost 4 months after that fateful day when Tammy Hale spilled the beans that Rochelle and Tommy were still sleeping together. The baby had blonde hair and blue eyes. A DNA test showed that Thomas Huville Jr. was the father of this baby. Rochelle named Gloria after her paternal grandmother. Kathleen was named after her maternal grandmother. But this fact did not bring a smile to Connie's face. "Congratulations," Connie said coldly. 21 years old and already the mother of 2 children from different fathers. Congratulations. "Stop it, Connie," Frances sighed. "Enough. Our daughter is like this, and we are somehow to blame for this. We are the ones who raised her to believe that she can sleep with anyone." What should have been a joyful moment turned bitter when Rochelle saw her father, her strong, brave father, slump and walk out of her room at University Medical Center in Lafayette, Louisiana. The next day, mother and baby walked out the front door of the charity hospital. Francis listlessly helped the nurse load his daughter and granddaughter into the car. Silently, he nodded his thanks to the young woman, then closed the car door. "Dad, Rochelle began as he turned onto I-10, heading east toward DeGard. "No, baby, please. Just don't say anything," Francis said in a lifeless voice. "Please, just don't say anything, baby." 6 months after that fateful day, when Rochelle's idyllic life was shattered by Tammy's confession, Carmen Davis of Davis Real Estate has found a buyer for the cozy 3-bedroom house. After paying off the loan on the house, the remaining balance gave Rochelle a check for $9,812. First of all, Rochelle returned to her parents $2,000, which they lent her to pay for the services of Sophia Cutter. Her father looked at the check and then handed it to his wife. "Dad, I'm sorry," Rochelle whispered as they sat at the kitchen table. "Me too, honey, me too," he sighed, pushed aside his half-eaten food, and left the room. "Mom, what can I do?" Rochelle asked her mother, tears streaming down her face. "What's done is done," Connie answered indifferently, continuing to eat dinner. "But I'm sorry," Rochelle sobbed. "Yes? And what will this change?" Connie asked. "Will an apology buy diapers for these children? Will an apology put food on the table?" Connie continued eating her dinner. After a few bites, she also pushed away her half-eaten plate and stood up from the table. "I hope they were good, these guys," Connie said. "I hope they were worth it." Rochelle cleared the table. Then she cleaned the kitchen. As soon as she had time to wipe the pan, Gloria announced that she was hungry. "But you already ate rice, remember?" Rochelle smiled at her. "Mom, why are you crying?" Gloria asked as Rochelle sat her in her high chair. Rochelle didn't answer, but simply opened the jar of applesauce. She placed the bowl in front of Gloria, and immediately Kathleen began to cry. The baby received a fresh diaper and then breastfeed. Mother and daughters were sitting in the kitchen. "Mom, why are you crying?" Gloria asked again, spreading applesauce on herself. While Rochelle nursed her 2 daughters, Jared sat in a very comfortable waiting room, looking out over the city of Houston, Texas. The secretary was a beautiful red-haired girl with white skin and light freckles. Jared decided that her breasts couldn't be natural. They say everything is bigger in Texas, but Hannah's breasts were definitely not made in Texas. "But I have a lot of money now," Jared thought as the sunlight reflected off a nearby glass building. "And there's nowhere to spend it," he continued to think. Alaska was cold. Jared couldn't believe how cold it was there. 3 pairs of thermal underwear, thick ski pants, 2 sweaters and a parka, and a hat, and he still felt like he was about to freeze to death. Heated hunting socks helped. Jared was sure that if it weren't for those socks, he would have turned into a block of ice. He was offered a significant amount of money to sign a contract for a second period of work, but Jared rudely refused. He was barely home long enough to help his mother pack up her small house. Aunt Michelle, her sister, lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and invited her little sister to move in with her. As soon as Jared sealed the last box, he received a call from a company that offered him a 3-month contract in the North Atlantic. The amount he was offered was indecently large. He would have to work almost 2 years at sea to earn that kind of money. Belinda sold Jared a house on Baylor Lake. This took only a small portion of his savings. Buying a new truck slightly reduced his financial cushion, but there was still money left. There's plenty of money, but there's also plenty of time, Jared thought as he put the last box in the truck. With a kiss and a hug, the mother went one way and the son another. Time was not Jared's friend. He didn't love Rochelle. Many times he didn't even feel sympathy for the beautiful blonde. In retrospect, he thought he should have asked for a paternity test instead of marriage. If the child was his, then he could simply pay child support. Of course, Gloria was not his daughter, and Kathleen wasn't his either. He wondered who Kathleen was like. Was she as beautiful as her mother, or more like Tommy? No, he didn't love Rochelle, but he loved being a father. Jared adored his little girl. The fact that his wife slept with her ex and her friends laughed at him behind his back made it impossible for Jared to continue being married to Rochelle, to stay and be Gloria's dad. Penny Richards, now Penny Jones, his lawyer, arranged for a management company to take care of Jared's Baylor Lake home during his 94-day assignment in the North Atlantic. He thought their services were a little expensive, but money was something he had in abundance. Alaska did not prepare Jared for the bitter cold of the North Atlantic. Squally winds whistled around the high-rise structures, and it seemed that no matter where he went, he simply could not escape the piercing cold. And in open water, the cold was literally to the bones. I don't care, Jared thought, trying to seal the seam. As soon as they say the shift is over, I immediately get on the helicopter and get the hell out of here. And so he did. After just 1 week at home, he got a job at King Sanitation. They sent him to Santa Barbara, California. He liked the warmth of California and the occasional California blonde. But after a few months, he confided in the Santa Barbara office's managing director, Bronson Medier, that he was homesick. He told Gordon King, owner and CEO of King Sanitation, the same thing. He missed having a home. Gordon King already had 2 welders in his Baylor Lake office, but he assured Jared he would call if he ever needed help. They parted on a good note. A week after returning home, Jared was invited to the company's headquarters in Houston, Texas. They wanted him to lead a team of welders on a trip to Nigeria. Over the phone, Mark Barnes told Jared with a grin that Nigeria was much warmer than Alaska or the North Atlantic. The sun's rays turned the nearby black glass and steel building into a sparkling, blinding diamond of light. Jared looked away from the sight and looked at his watch again. The letter said that the meeting was scheduled for 3:30. Over the phone, Mark Barnes confirmed the time. The secretary with a beautiful face, red hair, and beautiful breasts confirmed that the meeting was scheduled for 3:30. His watch showed 4:20. The clock on the wall behind the secretary's head also showed 4:20. Jared stood up, took one last look at Houston, Texas, and walked out the doors of the corporate office. "Sir?" The secretary called, but Jared let the door close. The security guard in the lobby hung up and motioned to Jared as he exited the elevator. "Sir?" Mr. Browsard, "Mr. Barnes is waiting for you," the guard said. "Tell Mr. Barnes never to contact me again," Jared said. "I will not work for a company that shows such a blatant level of disrespect for its employees." Jared returned home and enjoyed a solo dinner at Sweet Pea. He was wondering if he should stop by the Grandfather's Inn bar for a cold beer. There he could relax and admire the beautiful girls dancing on stage, but his body required a bed. The digital clock read 8:37 when he got into bed. Right now, he'd be telling Gloria the story about Bunky the Fat Monkey. Someone gave Gloria a stuffed monkey, and Jared just started rhyming as many words as he could with monkey. Thick, ridiculous, a complete mess, Jared thought, lying in his cozy bed. Chris Fontenot was thrilled to hear from Jared. He didn't even bother asking why Jared was calling his home phone at 8:54 p.m. "Yes, we have work in the workshop. We need to catch up," Chris agreed happily. Jared came in the next morning, hungover from a few beers the night before. But he came, and on time, which was more than could be said about most of the other workers in the workshop. Chris hugged Jared, then playfully tugged at his full beard, which he had grown while working in Alaska. Hangover or not, Jared left no trace. He would make a neat weld, check his work, and move on to the next project. "Dude, you're just handsome, do you hear?" Chris said admiringly. One of the workers was welding a school swing. Jared stopped and looked at the swing for a few minutes, then moved on to his next project. "Do you have children?" The man working on the swing asked him. "We were," Jared admitted. "Dude, I'm sorry." "It's hard," he said, and returned to his work. One day, out of the blue, Eric Miller called Jared's home phone. "Hey, dude, my book has been sold for a film adaptation," Eric shouted excitedly. "Wow, damn buddy, this is amazing." Jared congratulated his school friend. "But how are they going to make a film based on a book of poems?" No, this is a novel that I wrote," Eric laughed. "Listen, we're throwing a party at Backyard Barbecue. We rented a whole room. Will you come?" When, I'm already there," Jared said enthusiastically. "Tomorrow evening at 9 o'clock, Eric answered. "Man, I can't wait to meet you. It's been so long, huh?" The workshop was closed on Saturdays, and Chris was too cheap to pay overtime. Jared ran his hand over his stubble and decided he needed to shave. He also decided that he should cut his wild hair because his mother said that with such hair he looked like an axe murderer. Wagaman Barbershop was iconic in Degard, Louisiana. Many years ago, it was discovered by three brothers. The locals nicknamed the place the Shock Man's Barber Shop because only one brother knew how to cut a man's hair without looking like he'd been cut with a lawnmower. But that brother developed Parkinsonism, and the other two brothers disfigured many children's heads by giving them hairstyles. One of the Wagaman brothers left the business, passing it on to his daughter, who in turn hired two young women. The place was still called the Striker, but now it was because many teenagers and even some men were forced to swing after one of the young women exposed her breasts while accidentally touching a customer. "Tall and neat and shave everything clean," Jared said, settling into a comfortable chair. 40 minutes later, except for the permanent squinting he'd developed from his job, Jared looked exactly the same as he did in his yearbook photos. He paid the young woman, thought about it, and gave her a tip of $10. "Thank you, honey," the girl beamed. "No, thank you," Jared said, looking at his reflection in the long mirror. "Now I don't look like an axe murderer anymore." "Buddy, how do you know what an axe murderer looks like?" One of the client's jokes. "Mom told me," Jared laughed. "How does she know?" The man began to say, but Jared waved his hand in a friendly manner and left the hairdresser. Jared bought a bottle of champagne for $104 and a birthday card for $3 and then headed home. "I mowed the lawn and killed some time, cooked myself lunch and killed some more time, then took a nap and killed even more time." "Hey, you've come," Eric yelled as Jared walked into the back room of the barbecue restaurant. Eric hasn't changed at all since they were at school. He was still overweight, still suffered from terrible acne, still wore a messy head of brown hair and thick plastic glasses that hung on the tip of his nose. Even his clothes remained the same: a t-shirt with the symbols of the metal band Blind Guardian, khaki shorts, and sneakers without socks. Eric was already pretty drunk by the time Jared walked in, but he happily noticed a bottle of champagne. Jack Powell was there with his wife Ryuto Manaki. Jack joined the U.S. Navy straight out of high school and spent most of his service in Japan. There he fell in love with Japanese culture, customs, and Japanese women. Clifton Abrams was there too. His skin had cleared, but he still looked sickly pale. His hair was noticeably thinning, and Jared joked to Clifton that he would soon grow taller than his hair. There were a few other people there from school, a few people Jared didn't know that Eric had met in college, and a couple of Eric's friends from the neighborhood. The food was delicious and plentiful, and the beer was ice cold and also plentiful. "And Eric, we have a little surprise for you," said one of Eric's friends next door, staggering towards the door that led to the main hall of the restaurant. A drunk man opened the door, and Leslie Webb and Rochelle Esposito ran into the room with fake cheerleader costumes. Billy St. Charles followed with a huge tape recorder slung over his shoulder. His face was still severely disfigured from the motorcycle accident, giving him a terrifying appearance. He turned on the music and Leslie and Rochelle began dancing, waving their pom-poms. Jared tried to become invisible, to disappear into the wood paneling. He was ashamed of his ex-wife. He could see from her tight smile that she herself was uncomfortable being here. "I heard that today we have a special occasion," Leslie shouted over the noise with excessive joy. "Yes, I sold the book. I sold the book for the film," Eric announced drunkenly, trying to get up. "Movie? Wow," Leslie chimed in with fake enthusiasm. "But let me ask you something. Isn't it too hot in here?" "It's too hot," Rochelle agreed. With that, Leslie and Rochelle tore each other's cheerleading tops off, prompting even more screams and cheers from the guests. Another song came on and Leslie and Rochelle continued to dance, their large breasts barely contained in their tiny bikinis. "Hey, Jared, isn't she your ex-wife?" Clifton asked drunkenly, amazed. "Yes," Jared answered shortly. "Damn, and you missed her?" Clifton was amazed. Jared was glad he only had 2 beers. Even so, watching this sad spectacle, he felt his stomach rising. Now Leslie and Rochelle were left in only bikinis. Jared wondered if he could sneak out of the room before Rochelle noticed him. But the small stage where Leslie and Rochelle were dancing was right next to the door, leading into the main room of the restaurant. "Hey, Jared, do you know how to have an ex-wife?" Clifton asked, already giggling. "Get a lawyer," Jared answered calmly, hoping that Clifton would move away a little and stop breathing his fumes in his face. "Eh? Oh, that's a good option. Didn't think of that," Clifton agreed. "But you must hear this." Jared chuckled slightly. Clifton began to giggle almost hysterically. Meanwhile, Rochelle felt a sense of shame that she thought she had long suppressed. She recognized Eric Miller and Jack Powell from her school days. There she saw Clift Abrams, who was once in love with her. Beside her, Leslie continued to scream in delight as she twirled to the loud music. It was Leslie's idea to start dancing. Rochelle tried to find a job, but after the closing of the Baggett mattress factory in the city of Bender, there was even less work. Her parents were still helping her. In truth, they provided for it. Chad was constantly late on child support and often did not pay extra. Tommy also always paid later and less than he was supposed to. Leslie suggested this as an opportunity to make a few $100s a week. Rochelle now pulled off her bikini top. Now came the humiliating part. You had to walk around the room and try to get some money from clients. Rochelle turned to Clifton and saw him. Jared browsered. "Don't worry, I'm leaving," Jared said quietly, walking past her. For a moment, Rochelle couldn't say a word. Then, just as Jared had opened the door to the main hall, she turned around sharply. "Gloria misses her dad," Rochelle shouted. "About, you don't take her to Chad's for a visiting day?" Jared asked. "She misses her dad, not her donor," Rochelle replied. Jared stepped into the main hall. "And I miss you too," Rochelle shouted as the door closed behind him. Later that night, Jared sat in his dark living room, already on his 7th beer, and he wanted to talk to someone, get advice. His father died a long time ago, and Jared never knew his father's parents. His mother's parents died shortly after his birth, so he had no male role models. Phoenix was an hour behind Baylor Lake, so Jared waited until noon the next day. Aunt Michelle was delighted to hear the voice of her beloved nephew. "My only nephew," Jared teased her. Then his mother answered the phone. Jared assured her that he had gone to church that morning for the 9:30 Mass at St. Elizabeth of the Lake. "Isn't Mass at 9:15? Belinda asked carefully. "Only in the summer, Mom," Jared smiled. He then told her about his meeting with Rochelle the day before. He left out the fact that she was a dancer. "Do you love her?" Belinda asked quietly. "Whom? Rochelle?" "No, it was just sad to see her," Jared admitted. "Not hers," Belinda continued. "My daughter." "She doesn't?" "Yes, Mom, I miss her a lot," Jared admitted. Belinda felt that her son was very worried because he rarely called her Mom. She paused, waiting for him to say something, but Jared remained silent. Then you need to think about returning her, Belinda advised. What will people say? Jared asked. She's not my real daughter. Is their opinion important? Belinda asked. This girl, this woman, she said it right. That little girl misses her dad. The next day at lunchtime, Jared called Penny Jones' office and made an appointment for the next morning. He then told Chris that he needed to take the day off. Jared parks in front of the Esposito family's house. Rochelle abruptly opened the door before he could even knock and approached him with a smile and outstretched arms. Jared stunned her by placing a firm hand on her shoulder to steady her. Distance. I'm not here for you, Jared stated calmly. Rochelle froze, unable to believe her ears. This was not at all how she had imagined their meeting. After receiving documents that showed Jared had applied for visitation rights for Gloria and Kathleen, she decided that meant they would be reunited. I'm only here for the girls, Jared repeated firmly. Oh, yes, of course, Rochelle muttered in confusion and stepped back to let him into the house. Who's that there, huh? Gloria, who came to us, Connie asked with a smile, pushing her granddaughter towards Jared. Hey, man, damn, it's great to see you, Francis greeted happily, shaking Jared's hand firmly. Dad, is that you? Gloria cried out in surprise as Jared dropped to one knee to hug her. Yes, baby, it's me, Jared replied, wiping a tear from his eye. Dad, wait here, Gloria screamed and ran out of the room. Kathleen, this is your dad. Tell him, hi, Dad, Connie softly prompted the little girl hiding behind her. I see Gloria is as fast as ever, Jared said, looking at Rochelle, who was silently crying. Jared, Francis, and Connie laughed as Kathleen hid behind her grandmother. Dad, you have to tell Kathleen about Bunky the monkey. She doesn't know anything about him, Gloria shouted, returning to the room with the already tattered stuffed monkey in her hands. Well, I have Punky Monkey and Spanky Monkey at my house. I'll tell you everything when we get to my place, okay? Jared said with a smile, glad that the girls still remembered his stories about Banky the monkey. Okay, you have my phone number. Rochelle, it's still the same one that my mom had, and I gave your dad my cell phone, Jared said, picking Gloria up in his arms. Are you ready? When the results of Gloria Ann Browsard's paternity test came back, Jared filed a petition to have his name removed from the child's birth certificate. His name was never on Kathleen's birth certificate, and Jared never considered the 15-month-old baby to be his daughter. But Penny quietly asked Jared if he thought it was fair to separate the two sisters. Is this fair for a little girl? Gloria will go have fun with Dad, but Kathleen won't, Penny asked. Rochelle Esposito did not object to Jared Browsard filing a petition in court to recognize him as the father of both of her daughters if Chad and Tommy renounced their paternity rights. Chad signed the waiver so quickly it looked like his signature might catch the papers on fire. Penny joked that his speed left charred marks on the documents. Now, as Jared packed bags of diapers for Kathleen and a small suitcase of Barbie dolls for Gloria, Chad boasted to April. Well, yeah, you stupid asshole. Oh, I miss my daughter so much, I miss my daughter. Now that stupid moron is going to pay that bitch child support, Chad laughed. Now he's an asshole who's going to have to pay child support to that bitch. Chad was so busy with himself that he didn't notice that April was quieter than usual. When he dropped her off, April said she didn't feel well and might be sick. You can't even deliver out? Chad asked with irritation. Do you want me to puke on you? April screamed. After that, Chad hit her and took her home. Yes, that's right, I'm getting sick, April said, getting out of the car. It's called common sense. She asked Chad when they would finally get married. She had been wearing a cheap wedding ring on her finger for 3 years. The diamond was only a quarter carat, and the engagement ring was 14-karat gold. But every time April brought up the conversation about marriage, Chad found some condition that had to be fulfilled first. April thought that now that Chad would no longer pay child support for Gloria, he could finally move on with their wedding plans. Instead, Chad talked about how he and his older brother Davy were going to invest in a race car and race on the weekends in Pinocchio, Louisiana. Yeah, Chad, it looks like I've really lost my common sense, April said, walking into the house she shared with her parents. After receiving Jared's petition, Tommy thought for a moment and then signed the papers as well. He hated any payments to Rochelle and was furious that he was responsible for her child. It's like paying a prostitute over and over again and never getting her, he grumbled. Damn bitch, hasn't she heard about the pills? Meanwhile, Tammy Hale was also beginning to see the light. Charlie and Tommy laughed at how stupid Jared Browsard was. Her last boyfriend was a top salesman at a Toyota dealership in LG. She gave him a blowjob in the car while they were driving to the La Scala restaurant. And then she invited him to her home, where he used her body. And then that bastard turned out to be married, Tammy muttered bitterly under her breath. But upon reflection, she realized that she should have known this when her boyfriend insisted on going to her house or getting a room at the De Garden. $600 a month. Not now, goodbye, bitch. Tommy grinned. Stupid asshole, Charlie agreed, laughing. Charlie was still in college. It's been almost 7 years since they graduated from high school, and Charlie still hasn't earned enough credits to graduate with a bachelor's degree. And yet he still considered himself smarter than Jared Browsard or Jack Powell. After all, Jared went to a miserable little technical school, and Jack joined the Navy. Tammy tossed her long red hair and reminded Charlie and Tommy that she needed to start cleaning the house. It worked. At the mention of the word work, both men left her apartment. While Tammy collected empty beer cans from her apartment, Jared carried both girls, one in each hand, to his truck. Rochelle walked behind, knowing that this would not be the complete reunion she had hoped and dreamed of. If you need anything, just call, okay? Even if you just want to talk, okay? Rochelle suggested. Aha, Jared answered curtly, having absolutely no intention of ever calling Rochelle. Kathleen wasn't sure how to react to this stranger, but her older sister's enthusiasm was infectious. So she waved goodbye to her mom, and they left. Although Nana no longer lived in the house, her furniture was still there, so the house seemed familiar and cozy to Gloria. Her old bed was also there, and a new one stood next to it. Kathleen will sleep in Gloria's old bed because it had safety rails, and a new princess-style bed was purchased for Gloria. There were even old toys under the bed. There were 2 plush monkeys, Punky and Spanky. While Jared regaled the girls with the story of how Punky and Spanky ended up in his house, Rochelle sat alone in her room at her parents' house. There was a wedding album in front of her. Of their entire company, she was the only one who was married and, accordingly, divorced. She was the only one who had children. Tamara gave birth to a boy, but gave the dark-skinned baby up for adoption. Soon after giving birth, Tamara quietly left, and no one knew where she went. Ariel came out, which was not a surprise to anyone she loved girls. She now lived in Austin, Texas, with a masculine woman in her 40s, a heavy smoker and drinker. Rochelle sighed and slammed the album shut. It was Friday, a little after 8 o'clock in the evening. She had no children to take home, no work to do with Leslie, no need to rush home to relieve her mother of childcare duties. She reached for her cell phone, thinking about texting Leslie, Tammy, or April and suggesting they do something together. She then put the phone back on the dresser. What she wanted, she couldn't get. She wanted to be home. Instead, she sat in her old room at her parents' house. In the same room she lived in during high school at Baylor Lake. Slept on the same bed. This was her life for the foreseeable future. Her phone rang suddenly, and Rochelle smiled when she saw it was April calling. She was outraged when April asked her for Jared Browsard's phone number. What? Why would I have one? Do you remember? We're divorced, Rochelle replied irritably. April, I have to go. Tammy is on the other line. You're kidding. Rochelle almost screamed when Tammy also asked if she could get Jared's number. Kathleen knew it was Wednesday and told the staff at Happyland Daycare that it was Wednesday. Her dad should come for her. Well, How do you think this girl knows that today is Wednesday? One of the workers asked the other. And how does she know that it's Daddy's week to pick her up? Confirmed another. At 2:45, Kathleen began putting away her pencils. She always tried to put them in a certain order. First black, then brown, then blue next to purple, then red and yellow, and finally green and orange. The girl became very nervous if she was given a box of pencils that were not in order. But at 2:45, she put away the pencils, neatly folded the coloring books, then set the blocks by the bench and looked around for other toys that needed to be put away. The girl clearly has her own problems, noted Magdalena Savua, the chief administrator. If it was cold outside, Kathleen would stand by the coat racks and wait for one of the teachers to put a jacket on her. If no one came up after 5 minutes, she called the teacher. On warm days like today, she would just stand by the glass door and look out the window, waiting for her daddy's pickup truck to pull up. On the days when her mother or grandparents came to pick her up, Kathleen would simply draw, play, or sing songs she made up until one of them came for her. And if she was engrossed in the game, Kathleen would become capricious when her mother or grandparents picked her up. Gloria also knew that today was Wednesday. On Wednesdays, she was always one of the first to leave William C.C. Claiborne Elementary School looking for her dad's pickup truck. It was the same on Fridays when it was his turn to spend the weekend with them. Juice and cookies at Dad's house, and then, if the weather was good, they went out into the yard, played ball, or swung on the swing that Dad made for his favorite girls. On rainy days, they sat at the table, drew and sculpted from plasticine. Dad even knew how to make plasticine himself. Wednesday meant dinner at McDonald's for his girls. Jared could cook. His mother taught him. When he was married to Rochelle Esposito Browsard, Rochelle happily let Jared cook when he returned home from the offshore platforms. But preparing something that a 5-year-old girl and an almost 3-year-old toddler would eat was beyond Jared's culinary abilities, so McDonald's received their orders. Jared bought the girls Happy Meals and sat them down at the table. He then squeezed ketchup onto a napkin for Kathleen. "Dad, I need to go to the toilet," Gloria announced. "Now, honey?" Jared asked, trying not to show his annoyance. "I can take her," the attractive young woman offered. Jared looked up at the woman. She had short strawberry blonde hair, a fairy-like face, and a warm smile. She was about 4 feet 10 inches tall, even in high heels, and she was wearing a business jacket and a knee-length skirt. "Ma'am, I appreciate it, but I don't know you," Jared said. You're right." The woman opened her beautiful green eyes wide. "I didn't think about it, did I? But if you can keep an eye on our food so it doesn't get thrown away, I'd be very grateful," Jared continued. "I can do that," she agreed and sat down next to him. "I'll be right back," Jared said and picked up Kathleen, holding Gloria's hand. He led them into the toilet, wiped the seat, and put Gloria on it. While she was doing her business, Jared also changed Kathleen's diaper. And one day, "You two will be a big girl like your sister and go to the toilet like all big girls, right?" Jared encouraged. "Yeah," Kathleen agreed. "Dad, I'm done," Gloria called. "How is Rochelle coping with all this?" Jared was perplexed. "Thanks," Jared said as he and the girls returned to their dinner. "You're welcome," the woman smiled, her accent noticeably rustic. "By the way, my name is Jared Browsard, and these are my girls Gloria and Kathleen," Jared introduced himself. "I'm 5, and she's only 2, Gloria announced. "And I'm Ann Uval," the short woman smiled. Her accent especially came out when she said her name. She pronounced Ann in 2 syllables and Uval in 3. "Hey, Ann," and Uval sounded like "Hey, Uval." "From northern Louisiana?" Jared guessed. "Yes. How did you know?" asked Ann. "Shreveport," he suggested. "Where is it?" Gloria frowned. "Paulton, at the other end of I-20, Ann confirmed. "I see," Jared smiled. "And what are you doing in DeGard?" "Working. I work for Young Insurance," Ann answered. "This is my company," Jared agreed. "Car and home insurance. Well, we also do health insurance, and although no one wants to think about it, We also do life insurance, Anne said. Medical and life through my work, Jared said, Fontenot welding. Well, let me give you my business card if you suddenly want something else, Anne smiled. The card said Anne Demont, and Jared raised an eyebrow. I didn't have time to change them, Anne admitted. Congratulations. When did you get married? Jared asked. Tommy and I got married 3 weeks ago Saturday, Anne said, holding out her left hand so Jared could see the small diamond engagement ring and wedding band. Tommy? Tommy Uval Jr.? Jared was surprised. Yes, do you know him? Asked Anne. If it's who I think it is, we went to school together, Jared admitted. I mean, Yuval is a common name around these parts. Did you go to Baylor Lake? Asked Anne. The same Tommy, Jared confirmed, keeping a neutral expression on his face. Jared didn't like Thomas Yuval Jr. He didn't like the brash, arrogant guy when they studied together. He was even more unhappy when it turned out that his wife, Rochelle Esposito Browsard, continued to see Tommy behind his back. Rochelle and Tommy tried to pass Kathleen off as Jared's child. One day, a tipsy friend let it slip that Rochelle was still sleeping with Tommy. Upon learning of this, Jared demanded a paternity test for Gloria and the unborn Kathleen. A paternity test showed that neither girl was his daughter. Tommy Yuval was indeed Kathleen's biological father, but not Gloria's. Her father turned out to be Chad Terrio, another classmate from Baylor Lake High School. However, despite all this, Jared remained their dad. He loved and adored his daughters. Well, congratulations, Mrs. Yuval, Jared said. He looked around. Is Tommy here? He asked. What? Oh no, he was late with a client. Told him I'd get a Big Mac, Anne replied. With these words, she stood up and went to the cash register. Jared watched her slender figure in a skirt with admiration. Dad, do you want my fries? Gloria asked. As usual, Gloria only ate half the portion. Jared smiled and finished her potato, making loud chewing noises. To his surprise, Anne Yuval returned to their table with her tray. My dad is a French fry-eating monster, Gloria said. Yes? Anne asked and moved her fries away from Jared. Here, Dad, Kathleen said, holding out the rest of her fries in her small, dirty fist. Jared made his girls laugh, and Anne smiled as he made chewing noises again. Then Kathleen screamed as her daddy also chewed her little fist. So you and Tommy, were you friends at school? Asked Anne. No, not really, Jared answered honestly, but you know how it happens at school. God, tell me, I had the longest 3 years of my life, Anne agreed. 3? Jared was surprised. I skipped class, Anne admitted. Looking at his watch, Jared realized that it was late. Rochelle never scolded him if he was a few minutes late, but Jared knew how important it was for Gloria and Kathleen to stay on schedule. Say goodbye to Mrs. Yuval. It's time to go see Mom, Jared said, wiping Kathleen's sticky hands with a wet napkin he kept in his shirt pocket. Goodbye, Mrs. Yuval, Gloria said. Goodbye, Anne smiled. We come here every Wednesday, Jared said. He himself did not understand why he said this. After all, the woman is married, and even for a man whom he could not stand. Tommy, not Tom or Thomas, but Tommy, Jared thought as he carried the girls, one on each arm. Isn't it time to grow up, eh, Tommy? Here you go, the employee smiled, opening the door for Jared. Thank you. See you next Wednesday, Jared said. Oh, not your weekend? Asked the employee. No, alas, no, Jared said, slightly surprised. Then he saw that the plump woman was a fast food manager. He smiled and nodded goodbye. Daddy has a girlfriend, Gloria announced as Jared led them to Esposito's house. I have, Jared asked with a smile. Here's the news. At his place? Rochelle asked, her heart clenching. The attractive blonde was still hoping and praying that she would one day win Jared's heart again. She kept promising God that if she was given a second chance, she would become the best wife Jared Browsard had ever seen. We should have kept that promise from the very beginning, her mother said sharply. Instead of spreading your legs in front of everyone who says hello to you, right? Yeah, this is Miss Yuval, Gloria reminded her father. What? Gloria, honey, she's married to someone else. Jared explained patiently. She's not Daddy's girlfriend. It's good that it is so. Otherwise, I would have had to hit her, yes, Rochelle jokes. Oh, but she's married to your old boyfriend, Tommy, Jared said as he sat Kathleen down on the living room floor of Rochelle's parents' house. Tommy? Did he get married? You're making this up. Rochelle was indignant. No, ma'am, Jared smiled. He kissed both of his girls goodbye, waved to Rochelle's mother, and left the house. Dead End had much better food than McDonald's, and unlike the latter, you could drink a cold beer and watch young girls dance while enjoying the food and drinks. Having had enough, Ann Yuval drove to her mother-in-law's house. She made sure she took her briefcase and laptop with her and locked the car securely. Then she entered the house. She was with Ronnie Edwards, her mentor, when they gave a presentation at Siegel's Recycling. About 40 employees were bored while they talked about insurance services. The only question that people were interested in was, how much does the company pay? The costs are divided equally, Ronnie explained patiently. For dental coverage, you'll pay $9.14 per billing cycle for basic coverage, and Sagel's will add the same amount. Anne's job was to distribute brochures to board in different employees. At the end of the presentation, she just stood there, waiting if anyone wanted to ask questions. Tommy was among these employees. The attractive young man filled out the form, selecting the minimum coverage, and handed it to Anne. She blushed when he smiled at her, and then hesitantly agreed to his bold proposal for a date. Thomas Yuval Jr. had dark, curly hair, warm brown eyes, and a tan face with strong features. Although he was a little overweight, his arms and chest looked like Tommy had played sports during his school days. The date consisted of dinner at Manny's Mexican restaurant and then a round of mini golf. Over dinner, Anne said that she grew up in foster families. Her mother was a woman of easy virtue, and she did not know her father. Tommy said that he lives with his mother in a small house in which he has lived all his life. God, I feel like I've known you all my life, Tommy said. And it's the same for me, Anne agreed. Now, entering the small house, Anne felt that she did not know her husband at all. They got married just a few days after they met. Shortly after the wedding, Tommy somehow lost his job at Siegel's Recycling. Tommy assured Anne that he would soon find a new job. He promised her that they would start saving money. He promised that they would buy their own house and move out from his mother. Tommy promised a lot of things, but Anne did not see a single promise fulfilled. Here is my beautiful wife, Tommy called her. Anne sighed. It seemed that he was drunk again. Hopefully, he'll be too drunk to demand sex. And here he is, my handsome husband, said Anne, forcing herself to smile. Anne did not escape the dissatisfied look that her mother-in-law threw at her. Oh, by the way, do you know Jared Browsard? Anne asked Tommy. This weakling. Tommy laughed and drained his can of beer. Yes, I know. He didn't ask why she was finding out. Anne wisely decided to drop the subject. The next morning, Jared briefly remembered the pretty young woman he had met the night before. He then checked the magazine in the workshop. Since it wasn't his weekend with the girls, Jared agreed to go to the platform and make some emergency repairs. He collected underwater equipment and a welding machine and headed to the industrial canal. There he was escorted to the ship, which took him to the platform. While Jared watched the sun rise over the Gulf of Mexico, Anne tried to dress as quietly as possible. Chloe Yuval often criticized her daughter-in-law and did not hesitate to loudly express her complaints to her. Are you going to look for a job today, dear? Anne asked her husband, putting on her shoes. I search every day, Tommy lied. At work, Anne became immersed in business. One of her least favorite things to do was cold calling. As Ronnie once said, if you do this first thing, then you can do something else all day. Will you leave this for last? Then it will hang over your head all day, Ronnie said. The last call resulted in an appointment. The bar owner agreed to gather all the bar employees at 9:30 the next morning. How many people? I'll bring a box of Tornado donuts, Anne promised. Is there Twister's Donuts in Paulton? Almost as tasty, honestly. Let's count. 20, no, they just hired a second shift cook and 3 new dancers, so that makes 24, said Rosie, the owner of the Dead End Bar. Great. I need to go with you to make sure you do everything right. Ronnie Edwards congratulated Anne when she told him about the successful arrangement. Why? Asked Anne. Because Dead End employs some of the most beautiful girls in DeGard, joked Elizabeth Couture, young insurance branch manager. Congratulations, by the way. Many tried to negotiate with them, but no one succeeded. How did you do it? I just called and asked, Anne answered honestly. Seriously, I'd like to go with you too, Ronnie said. But they'll be dressed, Ronnie, Elizabeth joked. You don't know that, Ronnie laughed in response. That evening at dinner, Anne boasted of her accomplishments. Tommy stated that he wanted to go with her. Anne shook her head, plastering a wide smile on her face. Dinner consisted of leftovers, and the TV loudly played reruns of a mindless sitcom. How was your job search today? Anne asked, stoically chewing her overcooked dinner. What? Oh, okay. What's its name? Kendrick's Engineering said that they might be looking for someone soon. Tommy lied. They said that last week, didn't they? Anne clarified. You went to a soap. Yeah, they're not hiring, Tommy lied. He was too drunk for sex, but sober enough to demand that he please. Anne unzipped his jeans, pulled down his dirty underpants, and almost vomited from the smell of his unwashed body. Damn it, Tommy, when was the last time you took a bath? She squealed. His slap burned her cheek. Tears welled up in Anne's eyes. Forget it, bitch. I'm not in the mood anymore, Tommy muttered angrily, pulling on his panties and jeans. Okay, I'm not in the mood either, she snapped. The next morning, Anne bought 4 dozen Tornado donuts on credit, praying that the card would work. Tommy recently used her debit card, saying it was for repairs on his Dodge Challenger, but didn't bother to save the receipt. At the bar, Anne smiled welcomingly at the staff. It was a bar, a lounge where women danced and took off their clothes. But the place was clean, well lit, and smelled of food, not cigarettes and spilled alcohol. Most of the staff were smart, interested people who asked relevant questions. Anne had to ask Ronnie for clarification a couple of times, but overall she led the presentation on her own. My business card is in every package. I'll leave a few more with Rosie. If you have any questions, we are always ready to help, Anne assured the employees. You've probably heard about insurance companies that only want your money, but they never want to help you. It's not like that at Young Insurance, otherwise I wouldn't work there. The damn card isn't working, Tommy barked when Anne called to share the good news. She had signed up 14 of the 21 employees who had attended the presentation. Well, what did you use it for? Asked Anne. I told you I needed a water pump, Tommy said. You already changed it, didn't you? Anne clarified. He hung up. What? He yelled when she called back. We apparently separated by accident. I just wanted to know if you wanted to go to Tommy's po' boy, Anne suggested. How will I get there? I told you I need a pump, Tommy replied rudely. Forget it, sighed Anne. A quick check call to the bank showed Anne that she only had $4.19 left in her account. Paying for Tornado donuts reduced her balance to a minimum. Anne, Grant, and I are going to Salad Lights. Our wives hate us and force us to eat healthy food, Ronnie jokes. That's why I always keep a stick of jerky on the table, Grant winked. We will be glad if you join us. We will treat you. You really did a great job with your presentation, Ronnie added. On Wednesday afternoon, Anne looked at her watch, thanked the staff at Stahlsel's Shoes, and left. She was unable to sign any of the sellers, but Tom Stahlsel discussed with her the possibility of purchasing insurance on the home. What if I combine home and auto insurance? Asked Tom. So she had one deal, but it was a hollow victory. She got into the car and pursed her lips into a tight smile. Miss Chloe will be furious to learn that she filled up the tank using her gas credit card. It was her way of teaching a grumpy woman a lesson for giving her useless daughter a card. Anne snatched it from Tommy's wallet while he was in a drunken sleep. Whatever dish Miss Chloe had prepared the day before gave Anne terrible heartburn, and there is still a lot of it left. "McDonald's, I'm coming," Anne said. Jared was standing in the McDonald's play area. Kathleen and Gloria were having fun, so he took his time. "They're having a lot of fun," said Anne. "Hello, how are you?" Jared asked happily. "Everything is fine, and you?" Anne smiled. "Yeah, just got back yesterday," Jared replied. Anne didn't mind when Jared bought her a Big Mac along with 2 Happy Meals for the girls. "Are you not eating?" Anne was surprised. "Dead End serves ice-cold beer and burgers that always give me heartburn," Jared smiled. "You don't seem to drink much, do you?" asked Anne. "What? No, 1, maybe 2. The last thing I need is to get a Dewey," Jared replied. "What is Dewey?" Gloria asked. "It's when you drive a car when you shouldn't," Jared explained to his daughter. "So, since you're still a few years away from getting your license, you don't have to worry." "Dad, you said that I wouldn't be able to drive until I was 100 years old," Gloria reminded. "No, no, I said you won't have boyfriends until you're 100, Jared smiled. "Dad," Anne exclaimed, looking at him reproachfully. Okay, 99, is that better?" Jared grinned at Anne. "Dad, no," Anne answered with a grin. "How old does it take to drive a car?" Gloria asked. 16. "And you're 5 now," Jared said. "So how long will it be?" Gloria thought. "Okay, 16 minus 5. How much is that?" Jared helped. 11, Gloria answered. "Great. You'll get an extra kiss for that, okay?" Jared said. "Fine," Gloria answered happily. "I'm with them this weekend," Jared unexpectedly admitted to his new acquaintance. "On Friday, we have fish fingers and macaroni and cheese. And on Saturday, we have lunch here and then go to Chuck E. Cheese's for dinner. You can come," Anne invited Gloria. "Do you think my husband will let me?" Anne asked with a smile. "He can come too," Gloria decided. "Oh, I don't think he likes Chuck E. Cheese's," Anne said. "What? No, no, Mrs. Yuval, everyone likes Chuck E. Cheese's," Gloria corrected her. "Daddy has a new girlfriend, and she's coming with us to Chuck E. Cheese's," Gloria announced to her mom when Jared brought them home. "Gloria, honey, Mrs. Yuval is not Daddy's girlfriend," Jared explained. "Oh yes, I found out that Tommy is really married," Rochelle said. "He posted this on his Facebook page." "I told you so, but it seems like it's only true when it's on Facebook, right?" Jared smiled and kissed his girls. "Oh, and someone is going to the dentist tomorrow," Rochelle said, pointing at Gloria. "They're on my dental insurance," Jared reminded. "The card is in my bag," Rochelle confirmed. "Oh, in your bag? Well, then we'll never find her," Jared jokes. "That's true," Frances agreed. "Both of you shut up," Rochelle replied sharply. "Bye, girls," Jared said and kissed them both again. Anne didn't come to McDonald's for lunch on Saturday. She didn't come to the pizzeria in the evening either. Jared didn't expect her to join. After all, she is married. And unlike his ex-wife, Anne seemed to be the kind of woman who took her marriage vows seriously. On Sunday morning, Jared took Gloria and Kathleen to church. They attended St. Richard's Catholic Church in DeGard, although St. Elizabeth by the Lake Church was closer to his home. But St. Richard's Church had a more comfortable room for children. Anne and Tommy were sitting in one of the benches. Anne looked happy, Tommy looked hungover. But when Tommy saw Jared heading towards the kid's room, he grinned. He then pushed his wife and pointed at him. "Is this him? The one you were talking about?" he asked, pointing at Jared. "At McDonald's." "Yes," Anne confirmed. "He goes there with his daughters every Wednesday." "These are not his daughters," Tommy grinned. "What? Yes, that's them," said Anne. "No, they're not," Tommy grinned. "Chad, do you remember meeting him a couple of months ago? He is the oldest father, and I am the youngest father." "What are you talking about? This is terrible," Anne whispered, looking at her husband in shock. She looked again at the door of the children's room. "Does he know?" Anne asked in a whisper, amazed by what she heard. "Yeah, he even sued us for custody. Stupid coward," Tommy chuckled happily. to court for custody of these girls? Anne asked quietly, looking again at the door of the children's room. Yes, can you believe it? Tommy chuckled cheerfully. What a fool, right? But I don't have to pay child support. Anne didn't answer, just looked at the door of the crying room. Before the service, several more people entered, mostly women with small children. One of them, an elderly man, brought a young woman with severe mental retardation. I don't want to go there, muttered the young woman. I know, but they need your help, remember? The father persuaded. Hello, Julie, Gloria greeted the girl. Hello, Kathleen repeated after her sister. Do you see? Gloria and Kathleen are here, the father said. Several more people greeted the young woman. Her father looked relieved. For this hour, he could at least rest a little in relative peace and quiet. Tommy was eager to leave the church immediately after the deacon announced the end of the Mass. Anne enjoyed the anthem, singing along with the choir. Here's a quarter for you, Julie, Jared said with a smile, paying the girl for her help. How do you like it? The girl's father smiled, nodding as a sign of gratitude to the young man. Hello, Miss Yuval, Gloria almost shouted when she saw Anne. Hey, Anne, Tommy, Jared nodded. Well, hello, Gloria, Kathleen. Do you come here too? Anne asked, turning to the girls. Anne looked carefully at the younger girl. She had blonde hair, while Tommy had dark hair. The child had large blue eyes, while Tommy had brown, small, and narrow eyes. The older girl didn't look like Tommy either, although she had brown hair and brown eyes. Anne remembered Tommy saying that Gloria's father was Chad Terrio. But in Anne's opinion, both girls clearly had Jared's traits. Especially Gloria has a warm and kind character, a sincere smile. Hey, Browsard, Tommy nodded, trying to quickly lead Anne to the exit. Tommy took the wheel in their Toyota. Anne looked at him. He cursed irritably as they got stuck behind a row of minivans. If Anne hadn't stayed behind singing that stupid hymn, they would have been halfway home by now. Were they married? When did you sleep with his wife? Anne suddenly asked, seeing Jared's pickup truck in front of them. What? Tommy asked absent-mindedly, then cursed again when he saw Jared deftly cut them off. Crap, do you see? Because of you, I missed the moment. Jared's wife, Anne clarified. Did you know she was married when you slept with her? Yeah, Tommy grinned, a real girl of easy virtue. Tommy, it's terrible to talk about her like that, Anne objected. He was at sea, doing welding, yes, he's a welder, working on a platform, and we had sex with her at her house, Tommy recalled with a satisfied smile. Anne was about to say something, but changed her mind. She looked again at the man she considered her husband. The more time she spent with him, the more she realized that she didn't know him at all. When they were at Manny's or playing mini-golf, it seemed like they had known each other their entire lives. There seemed to be a special connection between them. Tommy himself claimed that he felt it. Anne didn't know that Tommy was a drunk and the kind of man who would knowingly sleep with another man's wife. Finally, damn it, it's about time, right? Tommy sighed as they pulled out onto the road. You just left the church and you're already swearing, Anne reproached him. On Wednesday morning, Anne got dressed for another day of work. Tommy barely noticed her leaving. At work, during her morning coffee break at 10:15, Anne turned and accidentally bumped into Jackie Kay, a secretary at Young Insurance. A coffee stain spread across Anne's cream blouse. Both women gasped at the same time, apologizing and trying to wipe the stain away. We'll have to run home and change clothes before going to Mama's po' boy, right? Anne said joyfully. Good luck there. Even Grant couldn't sign them, Ronnie said. But I'm prettier than Grant, Anne said. Well, this is not an argument. Everyone is cuter than Grant, Ronnie laughed. Hey, Ronnie, are you busy today? Maybe you'll bite me, Grant quipped. Anne drove home, trying not to speed. She frowned. Tommy's Challenger, which had been repaired the other day, was standing exactly where it had been in the morning when she left. Apparently, Tommy's promise to look for work in the morning had been forgotten. Oh yes, oh God, aha, shouts were heard. She also heard heavy breathing over passionate cries. Anne's stomach turned over. Anne walked carefully down the corridor towards the room she shared with her husband. And on her bed, on the very bed that she and her husband considered to be a matrimonial bed, her husband had sex with some woman. She then had the presence of mind to take her phone out of her purse. "Hey guys," she said. Tommy turned and looked over his shoulder at his wife. Anne snapped a few pictures on her phone, then quickly ran out of the house. With or without a coffee stain on her blouse, Anne still managed to close 2 deals that day. But Mama's Po' Boys restaurant did not choose insurance from Young Insurance. "Like I said, even Grant couldn't sell them anything," Ronnie Ann said. "No, but my goodness, their oyster po' boy was great," Anne agreed. That afternoon, Anne sat at her desk, doing nothing. She completed all the paperwork for her sales. She checked to see if her paycheck had been deposited into her new First Union account. She double-checked that the old DeGard National account had been closed. She didn't give Tommy access to her new bank account. The debit card was hidden in her laptop case. Tommy complained about the old account being closed and punched Anne in the face again when she snapped that he had blown all the money without depositing a penny into the account. "Mrs. Yuval, we're about to leave," Lee Farmer, another agent, said, interrupting Anne's thoughts. Anne looked around. They were the last ones left in the office. Sighing heavily, Anne nodded and stood up. McDonald's caught her attention again, and then Anne didn't know what to do or where to go. Once again, Gloria and Kathleen were playing in the McDonald's children's area. Anne smiled and parked. "The McDonald's in Paulton has never had anything like this," Anne said. "Hi," Jared said. "The one in Baylor Lake didn't do it either. It's not like my mom ever went there." "Hello, Miss Huval," Gloria shouted, climbing through the pipe. "Hello," Kathleen said cheerfully. "Hello," Anne called back. "Yes, my mother was like that. You didn't want to eat what she put in front of you. So you just weren't hungry," Jared said. "Can I talk to you?" Anne suddenly asked. "Yeah, the bench is here," Jared said. Jared sat down. Anne sat down a few inches away and pulled herself together. "Came home and brought me coffee," Anne finally said. She pointed to her small breasts, to the coffee stain. Jared looked at his chest. "You know, I wanted a change, but then you come and find my husband cheating," Anne said in a tense voice. Jared thought about it for a moment. Then his brown eyes opened wide and his mouth dropped open. "What did you do?" Jared asked. "You mean after I stopped vomiting?" asked Anne. "Dad, are you ready?" Gloria asked, running up. "Yes, honey, let's go get a happy meal," Jared said. He picked up both of his girls and walked towards the McDonald's door. Anne rose to her feet. "We'll talk again," Jared promised her. "Unless you're in a hurry." "I have nowhere to go," Anne said simply. Jared bought Anne a Big Mac set meal again, as well as Happy Meals for Gloria and Kathleen. While he was getting Kathleen and Gloria settled and preparing food, Anne looked at both girls. Tommy said he was Kathleen's father, and Chad Thuriot, another high school friend, was Gloria's father. But with her untrained eye, Anne could see no trace of Chad Thuriot or Tommy in the two girls. And if Jared knew he wasn't their father, the man didn't show it. He was the most loving and attentive man she had ever seen. "Seriously, what did you do?" Jared asked when Gloria and Kathleen were distracted. "I didn't do anything. I just turned around and walked out of there," Anne said. "As you can imagine, I didn't even change my top." Jared looked at her breasts again. He then looked at her as she slowly chewed her Big Mac. "Well, are you going to go back there?" Jared asked. She shook her head. "No." Then she looked at him. A single tear rolled down her face. "Moved here, lived in that awful little boarding house, Mrs. Duvalier. God, that woman was crazy, do you hear? Did she have rules for almost everything? Then we met Tommy, we got married, and we're going to get our place, but that never happened. Now I have nowhere to go," Anne admitted. "I have an extra room at home," Jared said. Jared accepted Kathleen's offer of fries and made Gloria and Kathleen squeal, making slurping noises. Anne smiled and made Gloria laugh as she took away the fries from the potato monster. No, Kathleen squealed when Jared told her that her fingers looked like French fries. No, Daddy, you don't eat her fingers, Anne ordered. This room? Anne asked quietly. You want us to do nasty things for this? I always want this, Jared said. I'm a guy. But no, Anne, I would never force you to do anything like that. Promise? Asked Anne. I promise, Jared said. I'll even do the pinky. I swear you want it. Here you go, potato monster. I'm done, Gloria announced, holding out the fries. Yum, and these fingers look like French fries, too, Jared exclaimed. Your fingers are like French fries, Gloria said. You know what? They definitely know, Jared said. Do you think I should eat them? No, Anne, Gloria, and Kathleen screamed. See you next Wednesday. The manager smiled as the quartet left the restaurant. Anne followed Jared to Rochelle's house. She sat in the car and waited for Jared to take his girls. The young woman who answered the door was clearly Kathleen's mother. Both had straw-colored hair. The woman often touched Jared, licked her lips, stuck out her chest, smiled, laughed. Anne watched Jared's face as he turned and walked towards his truck. There was a feeling of heaviness on his face as he left his little girls. No, Tommy Huval, you are not man enough to be the father of this little girl, do you hear? Anne said bitterly. She then followed Jared to his small house. The living room and kitchen were furnished with furniture chosen more for comfort than style. The children's room, however, was decorated with care. 2 princess beds stood side by side, and there was an elegant desk, chest of drawers, and wardrobe. Their toys were put in a large box, their clothes hung neatly in the closet. I can't believe how clean it is, Anne commented, looking around the children's room. Yeah, Kathleen is cleaning up before we can leave, Jared admitted. The room in which Anne was to live was simple. The furniture was not particularly stylish. There was a simple single bed with a patchwork-style cover. I don't remember the last time they were washed. I should probably wash them, Jared said. Oh, can I throw my top together? Anne asked again, pointing to the coffee stain on her chest. Yeah, we should think about taking your things, yeah, Jared said, looking at her small breasts again. Will you come with me? Anne asked pleadingly. Jared smiled with difficulty. He knew this was a bad idea. There was a lot of discontent between him and Thomas Hewall Jr. Jared had no doubt that he could beat Tommy in a fair fight, but he also knew that Tommy couldn't fight fair. Actually, Anne, it would be better if you asked the police to help you, Jared said. Jared took them to the DeGard police station. There, Sergeant Lionel Pyle was assigned to their case. Okay, call him. Tell him we're coming to pick up your things, Lionel said after filling out the form. Where the hell are you, huh? Tommy hissed furiously into the phone. At the police station, Anne said. Oh, Jesus, what have you done, you stupid bitch? Tommy spat. I didn't do anything, said Anne. But listen, I'll come pick up my things now, okay? No, that's not okay, Tommy said. Tommy, these are my things. You have no right to stop me from taking them, Anne said. Try it, Tommy challenged. Well, obviously, it will be fun, Lionel noted sarcastically. Captain Bob Chastain assigned Officer Brian Jotchett to accompany them. Brian played football at school and, unlike Tommy, remained in shape. Jared warned Leanne and Brian that there had been tension between him and Thomas Hewell Jr. in the past. Everyone agreed that it would be best if Brian stayed with Tommy while Lyanna went with Anne to pack her things. Jared remained outside the Hewalla house, sitting in his pickup truck. Does he know where you live now? Brian asked Jared. Officer, this is Baylor Lake. Jared smiled tensely. Everyone here knows where everyone lives. Oh, Jared, I didn't think about that, Anne screamed. No problem, Jared assured her. In that case, you should just go home. We'll load everything into the squad car, Lyanna suggested, in a tone that made it clear to Jared that this wasn't just a suggestion. Almost 40 minutes later, Lyanna helped Anne carry her 3 bags of clothes into Jared's house. The attractive red-headed officer nodded approvingly as Jared laid clean sheets on Anne's bed. You're in good hands now, she told Anne. You're in much better hands now. What's happened? Jared asked as Lyanna left the house. He started yelling and acting like an idiot, Anne said. I'm tired and I stink. Where is the bathroom? Over there. And the big bird bottle is a bubble bath, okay? Jared said. Anne laughed and pulled a robe out of one of the bags. I'll take a long, hot shower and then just go to bed, she said. Good night. Good night, Jared agreed. The next morning, Anne barely made it to the kitchen, her hair wildly disheveled, but Jared paid more attention to her choice of outfit for the night. She was wearing a short, tight t-shirt and a pair of panties and fluffy pink socks on her feet. Oatmeal on the stove added raisins and pecans, Jared said as he tucked himself under the table. When Anne reached for the mug, her panties stretched over her round bottom, and he almost groaned. Where are the bowls? Asked Anne. The cabinet is next to the stove. Spoons in a drawer next to the refrigerator. I don't know why, but my mom always kept them there, Jared said. It's delicious. Miss Chloe didn't cook anything like that, said Anne, sitting down at the table. It's normal now, but when are the girls here? This is Gloria's place, Jared smiled. About, where should I sit then? Asked Anne. Next place, Jared said. Again, when they're not there it doesn't matter, but Kathleen gets upset if things aren't the way they should be. Anne moved one seat further down. Anne muttered, approving of the oatmeal as she took another spoonful. I almost forgot. Here are your keys, Jared said. I need to be in the workshop by 7. I don't know what time you'll have to leave, he said, handing her the keys across the table. Thank you, Anne replied. Yeah, Jared replied. The coffee is great too, Anne praised. Just remember to turn off the coffee maker before you leave, Jared said, and decided to quickly leave the kitchen. When Anne arrived at work, the secretary, JCK, handed her a note. JC's usually friendly face showed an expression of irritation. One more time your husband calls me a lying bitch, I'll call the police, she said in her quiet voice. I don't get paid for such humiliation. JC, did he call you that? Then call the police right now, Anne said, throwing the note in the trash. She walked to her desk, then sighed and picked up the phone. Silently praying, Anne dialed the number. Finally, Tommy barked. And I already told that little bitch that you don't have to lie to protect you. She wasn't lying, Tommy. I just got here, Anne said. So what do you need? Okay, you win, Tommy said, annoyed. You win, so go home. Did I win? Won what? Anne asked, confused. Some kind of game of yours, Tommy snapped. Oh God, I saw you do it, and you think it's... Tommy, I think you're crazy, you know, Anne blurted out. And don't call here again, do you hear? Even though she was shaking, Anne was still able to schedule appointments with service company T-Dan's Quick Repair and Acapulco Grand Mexican restaurant in Pinoak, Louisiana. I hate cold calling, Anne told Ronnie. But you're right. It's better to do them right away so they don't hang over you all day. At T-Dan's, which was located in a trailer in Jack Creek, Louisiana, Anne talked with Danny Bordeaux, Darlene, and Hillary. All three had the same last name, and Anne couldn't figure out which one was Danny's daughter and which one was Danny's wife. The fact that both girls called him Daddy didn't clear things up. Both of them leaned on him and affectionately touched the man. And then there was the cockatoo, who kept yelling insults at her the entire time Anne was discussing insurance plans with them. As Anne was finishing her presentation, 2 babies began to cry loudly. Anne sighed as Darlene and Hillary quickly scooped up the babies and began breastfeeding. Isn't it beautiful? Danny smiled proudly. Miss Dumont, I think we'll take this health insurance plan for all my 3 employees. 3 workers? Anne smiled. Yes, Darlene is our accountant, Danny explained. And Hillary is a paperweight and I'm a slave, he chuckled. Well, let's get started then, Anne said as she watched 2 young mothers feed their children. Am I a paperweight? Hillary squealed, throwing her long blonde hair back. And since when did she get a promotion? Darlene teased. Evil stepmother, Hillary snapped. Whatever, Darlene laughed, and both girls giggled. Returning to the office, Anne learned that the police had been called about her husband, who was harassing JCK. Why doesn't he just? Anne began, looking at her phone. She noticed the battery was low and wondered how long it had been out of charge. Anne sat down at her desk, still staring at the screen. And I guess I left the charger in the drawer, Anne said out loud. Can you buy it from PC Nation? Ronnie asked. I think you can find it there. Anne looked up. Ronnie smiled sympathetically and shrugged. I also went through a divorce a couple of years ago, he said quietly. It's amazing how many little things you forget, run away from home, and don't think about them, and then suddenly they become the most necessary. Is it written all over my face? Anne asked quietly. About that, Ronnie agreed. See you tomorrow, Anne said, rising to her feet. Hey, I'm making chicken and rice, okay? Jared shouted as Anne entered the house. Just let me change, Anne shouted back. Oh, Jared exclaimed. After a moment, Anne realized what Jared meant by his exclamation. She screamed. That's not what I meant, she shouted from her bedroom. She smiled when she heard Jared laugh. Anne wore a baggy t-shirt without wearing a bra underneath. She thought her breasts were small enough that it wouldn't be that noticeable. She found her Paulton school sports shorts in the trash bags. She didn't understand who had chosen the school colors, gray and white, but they were always ugly. However, the nylon shorts were comfortable. She didn't wear panties underneath, preferring the comfort. Is it a good day? Jared asked, covering the large frying pan. Yes, not like Mrs. Chloe, answered Anne. You probably haven't noticed, but I'm not Mrs. Chloe, Jared said. No, you're too cute for that, Anne agreed. Oh, thank you, Jared feigns flattery, batting his eyelashes playfully. Will I do something? Asked Anne. The dishwasher is about to load. It'll be ready in 20 minutes, Jared said. They sat at the kitchen table, each with a can of beer. Anne told him about her day, and Jared listened. Then he checked the frying pan and served them dinner. Anne said with pleasure, chewing the hot dish. Cool it, Jared advised. Do you want some crystals? Crystals? Asked Anne. This is the only sauce we allow in our house, Jared said. They finished dinner. Anne then leaned against Jared as he loaded dishes into the dishwasher. Jared sensed that she wasn't wearing a bra under her t-shirt, and he immediately became aroused. Do you have a microwave at work? Jared asked, remaining bent over as he pulled several containers from the bottom cabinet. I can make you lunch if you want. Oh, yes, Anne exclaimed joyfully. Her hug didn't help Jared cope with his condition. However, he put a large portion in a container for her and showed her where he put it in the refrigerator. He then filled another container with the leftovers from the dish. Thursday, do you like the Big Bang Theory? Asked Anne. Yes, Jared replied. He sat down in his chair, and she plopped down on the long sofa. Even though there was a repeat episode on TV, they both enjoyed watching the show. I hated when they made Mike and Molly, Anne commented. Jared looked at her and noticed that her shorts had ridden up, revealing a good chunk of her round ass. Yeah, Jared muttered, still staring at her cute ass. I'll probably go to the drilling rig tomorrow. Chris put Alan on shift, but knowing Alan, that son of a bitch would probably call in sick. Jared said, I'll text you if this happens, okay? Is it dangerous? Anne asked, turning to him. Yeah, I do underwater welding, so yeah, it's pretty dangerous, Jared managed to say. He received a quick kiss, just a light brush of lips as he bid Anne goodnight. Alan, as expected, took sick leave. Jared smiled and texted Anne that he was leaving for the rig and would be there for 4 or 5 days. Be careful, Lou, she replied. Lou, he wrote back in surprise. I love you, she explained. Oh, BJ too, Jared sent in response. How are the girls? Anne asked after a minute. Not my weekend duty, Jared replied. He smiled when she sent a sad emoji. That's exactly how he felt when he couldn't see the girls on the weekends. Jared was at sea for 4 days and returned to land on Tuesday. He sent Anne a message that he was back on solid ground and would be home when she returned from work. Lou, she replied along with a smiling emoji. You too, Jared sent back. Jared realized that he liked having someone to talk to. He liked that there was someone who noticed that he was not around, who was happy for him to return home. When he entered his bedroom, there was a stack of freshly washed clothes on the bed. There were traces of a vacuum cleaner on the floor, as if someone had thoroughly cleaned the room. The towel he had draped over the shower bar was gone, as was the washcloth he had left on the faucet, and the mirror shone with cleanliness. Someone did some serious work here, Jared noted. The bathroom down the hall was also sparkling. The kitchen was spotlessly clean. Yes, someone was very busy, Jared noted with a smile. He dumped his dirty clothes from his gym bag onto the laundry room floor and checked all his pockets. Making sure they were empty, he started the wash. His phone rang. "Hello," Jared replied. "Are you hungry?" Anne asked cheerfully. "I can eat," Jared agreed. "Acapulco Grand? In Pin Oak? I have a presentation there tomorrow. I want to see the establishment first," she suggested. "Are you there already?" Jared asked. No, I'm at work," Anne replied. "Let me take a quick shower and I'll pick you up," Jared said. He didn't hesitate, although his thoughts flashed to the image of a naked Anne, who was probably cleaning his bath, wiggling her cute ass. 20 minutes later, he was driving out of his yard. "I'd almost forgotten what it's like for a man to own his own vehicle," Anne smiled as Jared opened the door of his pickup truck for her. "I'm not Tommy," Jared thought. At the restaurant, he helped her out of the car and did not object when she took his arm. She didn't let go of his hand as they stood in the small hallway of the restaurant and continued to hold his hand as they walked to the table. "By the way, thanks for cleaning the house. You didn't have to do that," Jared said as they looked at the menu. "By the way, how much are you going to charge me for rent?" asked Anne. "Nothing," Jared replied. "Mom didn't charge me anything when it was her house." The food wasn't bad. It was standard Tex-Mex cuisine, small portions and high prices. "Thanks, but I invited you," Anne said after Jared paid for dinner. "Yeah," Jared smiled. On the way back to the office, they passed the Shinano River Spa and both looked up at the low building. For sexual relaxation, Jared sometimes visited a massage parlor in Jack Creek. Shinano River Spa employed 4 Taiwanese women. For $90, they washed him, wrapped him in a few warm, damp towels, and laid him on a padded bench. They gradually removed each towel, slowly rubbing his body. For $25, the woman slowly and carefully satisfied him. $200, suggested one of the more persistent women. "Maybe next time," Jared smiled. "That's what you said last time," she laughed. At breakfast the next morning, Jared pulled his wallet out of his jeans. He then carefully leafed through the small stack of business cards he found in his tattered wallet. "How many of these cards do you have?" Anne asked with a smile, scraping the last piece of cheese porridge from her plate. "Well, of course, always the last one," Jared laughed, placing a business card in front of her. "Penny Jones, lawyer," Anne read aloud. "Divorces, custody cases. She's one of the best," Jared praised her. "I mean, anyone from her office should be good, but personally, I completely trust Miss Penny." "Then that's enough for me," Anne agreed. "And today is Wednesday," Jared reminded her. "What time do you pick them up?" asked Anne. "They're calling for rain at 3, Jared said. "What does rain mean?" asked Anne. "We'll paint with our fingers," Jared answered. "Oh, great," Anne laughed. As she stood on her tiptoes to kiss him goodbye at the door, Jared smiled and leaned over. "I love you," she smiled. "And I love you," Jared smiled, kissed her again, and left for work. At work, Anne made sure that JCK, the secretary, and Elizabeth Couture, the office manager, knew she would leave at 2:30. Elizabeth smiled and shrugged. "Anne, you do understand that you are a seller, right? You can come and go as you please as long as you do your job," the woman smiled. "I know, I just think you need to be responsible," Anne replied. Her first call was to Penny Jones' office. Penny's assistant, who sounded quite young, made an appointment for Friday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Anne thanked the girl and clenched her jaw resolutely. She didn't close a single deal that day, despite 20 cold calls. She managed to complete all the paperwork, filed everything she had, and sat down. Ronnie smiled as she blew a strand of hair from her forehead. Okay, what now? Take all your clients and see how you can save them a few dollars, he advised. Okay, she replied, clicking on the icon on the desktop. Customers will remember the salesperson who saved them a couple of dollars, and they'll tell their neighbor, their brother, their colleague about who saved them $10, $15, $20 on insurance, Ronnie instructed. She started with the oldest cases and moved slowly. By 2:30, she had called 7 clients and made appointments with 3 of them. See you tomorrow, Anne said. By the time she returned home, the rain was pouring down in buckets. She smiled when she saw Jared's truck was already parked outside the house. Hello, Miss Anne, we are finger painting, Gloria shouted joyfully. Hello, Anne responded cheerfully. Hello, why are you so early? Jared asked. Today is Wednesday, said Anne. She then made him remove the shade from the table lamp while she attached a piece of paper to the wall. Gloria, what is your favorite color? Asked Anne. Purple, Gloria announced. Blue, said Kathleen. Okay, Gloria, sit here, sit like this, and don't move, Anne instructed, putting down the lamp. What are you doing? Jared asked, watching Anne quickly trace Gloria's shadow on a piece of paper. Here, Daddy, hang this on the refrigerator, Anne said, pinning another piece of paper to the wall. Gloria, now you can stand up and let Kathleen sit down. By the time Jared had washed Gloria and Kathleen and got them ready to go to McDonald's for dinner, Anne had finished cutting out the girls' silhouettes and putting them in frames. This is for your mother, understand. Gloria, yours is purple and Kathleen's is blue, Anne said. Now, what should I say? Jared reminded him softly. Getting to the truck was not an easy task. Anne tried to help as best she could, carrying Kathleen in her arms and trying to hold the umbrella. But everyone was still wet by the time they got to the truck. After dinner, Anne stayed in the car while Jared led Gloria and Kathleen to the door. When he returned, he shook his head sharply, splashing water on Anne, causing her to scream. That was really cute, the silhouettes, Jared said. My teacher, Miss Trainer, showed me how to do it in 4th grade, Anne answered simply. At home, Anne smiled and went to her room. Meanwhile, Jared was clearing the remains of his finger painting from the table. Here's yours, Daddy, Anne said, carrying 2 more framed silhouettes into the kitchen. Oh, hey, Jared smiled, looking at the pictures. I love you, Anne smiled. Then she kissed him. I really love you, she whispered. I need, Jared said and put the frames on the table. Is something wrong? Anne asked, starting to get nervous. Yes, Jared said, not daring to look her in the eyes. What? Asked Anne. Anne, damn it, do you understand how difficult this is? Jared blurted out. He exhaled. Anne looked at him, scared and confused. To hell with it, I'll just say it, he said. I want you, he said, looking straight into her eyes. So what are we waiting for? Anne asked, giggling nervously with relief, with joy. He picked her up, kissed her, and carried her to his bedroom. Anne laughed as he kicked the door shut. It closed with a loud thud. This is wrong, Anne thought as she hurriedly took off her blouse and bra. You're married. She unzipped her skirt and threw it off along with her panties. This is not your husband. It's a sin to sleep with another man when you're still married, Anne mentally repeated, spreading her legs in anticipation. Jared stretched out on the bed and pulled Anne close to him. Their kisses were hasty, almost feverish. Their hands touched, stroked, and rubbed against each other. Oh, Anne moaned as Jared's lips pressed against her small breasts. He didn't complain that her breasts were small. Jared gently touched Anne's shoulders, his touch full of tenderness and confidence, as if he was afraid of ruining this fragile moment. She felt his warmth, as if it was transmitted not only through his hands, but through his entire being. His hands slid slowly down her back, pausing for a moment to feel her breathing, her rhythm. Anne took a deep breath, allowing herself to completely lose herself in the touch. Jared's every move was imbued with care and attention. He was in no hurry, as if time had stopped for them. His touch conveyed more than words. It spoke of affection, of care, of wanting to show her that she was important. He leaned down to her neck, his lips softly brushing her skin, causing her to smile faintly, as if confirming that she was safe and loved. Anne couldn't help but smile as Jared found a way to make her laugh lightly, his playful movements making the moment light and warm. He seemed to enjoy every response, every whisper of her breath, every movement of her body. It was as if he read her thoughts, knew when to slow down, when to let her breathe in time with his rhythm. She closed her eyes, giving herself permission to just be in this moment. All external problems and worries receded. All that remained was the feeling of his hands, his warm breath, and their common space, which became a single world for the two of them. Jared, in turn, listened to her body, her mood, trying to convey to her all his affection and tenderness through his touches. "You are so beautiful," he whispered, barely touching her ear. Those words sounded like a promise, like a reflection of what she meant to him. Anne flinched from the unexpected but pleasant compliment. Her lips stretched into a grateful smile, but she didn't say anything. She didn't want to ruin this moment with unnecessary words. Their voices merged into a quiet, almost melodic dialogue. There was no tension or haste in these words, only gentle confessions and quiet jokes that seemed understandable to only the two of them. This was a dialogue not about words, but about feelings. Jared made her feel special, important, in a way she hadn't felt around another person in a long time. Anne felt her heart beat in time with his movements, as if their souls were united in one rhythm. He was there, but not just physically, he was completely here with her. She felt his sincerity in every touch, and this trust increased her desire to be close to him. This was not a moment that was dictated by superficial desires or passion. It was something deeper, connected to their souls. When their eyes met, no words were needed. Their eyes said it all. There was so much understanding, support, and mutual care that words would have become unnecessary. Jared's gaze expressed confidence that he would always be there, ready to listen, support, and protect. Anne felt safe, as if all her fears and doubts had dissipated under the weight of his sincerity. They both knew that this was a moment that was not associated with the usual passion or superficial attraction. It was something more, it was unity, when souls touched deeper than just bodies. Anne felt like she had finally found someone with whom she could be herself without fear of rejection or misunderstanding. At that moment, Jared gently hugged her, pulling her closer, and she pressed herself against his chest, listening to his heart beat. It knocked steadily, calming her, and in that moment, she realized that their connection was more than just physical attraction. It was about trust, support, and willingness to be there no matter what. Their bodies may have been silent, but their hearts spoke to each other in a language only the two of them could understand. It was the start of something special, something that would support them through the most difficult moments of their lives. Anne rolled over and laid her head on his chest. Jared hugged her and pulled her close. "Is it too early to say, 'I love you'?" she asked quietly. "What does Wiley mean?" Jared asked, referring to how they used to cut that confession short. "No, Jared, I really think I'm in love with you," Anne said seriously, rolling onto him and taking his face in her hands. She kissed him passionately. Then she pulled away and looked into his eyes. "Anne, we just made love," Jared said, returning her gaze. "I mean, for me that's what it was, we made love." "About, oh Lord, I need," Anne suddenly exclaimed and hurriedly slipped out of bed. At first, she was going to run out into the hallway and get to her bathroom, but the urgency of the situation changed her plans. She rushed into Jared's bathroom and slammed the toilet lid shut with a loud thud. Jared waited until she had flushed the water and then lazily headed to the bathroom. "It's not too early to say, 'I love,'" Anne began, washing her hands. "Not too much," Jared smiled and lightly spanked her on the buttocks. "Anne, I love you." On Friday, Anne met Penny Jones. The attractive woman immediately liked her from the first handshake, and when Anne described her marriage, she saw that Penny truly understood and sympathized with her situation. But when Anne showed Penny evidence of Tommy's infidelity, the lawyer's face tensed. This means that I think there will be no problems with divorce, Penny answered seriously. She also reviewed Anne's bank statements and charted her income and expenses, as well as Tommy's lack of deposits and his numerous withdrawals. We'll ask for his financial reports, Penny promised. Richard Boudreau was Penny's preferred litigator to use if problems were expected. Teresa White, another bailiff, was currently unavailable due to her impending birth. The smiling man admired Tommy's Dodge Challenger and then knocked on the door. A moment later, he knocked again. "What?" Tommy snapped, sharply opening the door. "Hey, dude, this car. I'd like one, but I know for sure that Bernie won't let me have one," Richard said with a smile. "Yeah, great," Tommy agreed, walking out and scratching his bare belly. "Oh, wait, sorry, are you Tommy Huvall? I'm Richard, you're Tommy, right?" he asked. "Yes, it's me," Tommy confirmed, trying to figure out if he knew this smiling man. "Well, now you officially have it," Richard said, handing him a manila envelope. Tommy stood looking at the documents in surprise. Anne knew the moment when her husband received the summons. Tommy sent her a stream of texts, most of them inarticulate. Then he left a long, drunken voicemail. Anne immediately realized that her husband had been served with a summons. Tommy sent her a whole bunch of text messages, most of them unintelligible. He then left a long, rambling, clearly drunk voicemail. "Miss Anne, your phone is ringing," said Gloria. "Yes, but you and I are busy, right?" Anne answered with a smile. She leaned over to help Gloria mix the batter for the waffles they were making for dinner. On the stove, Kathleen and Jared gently stirred the blueberries and sugar over medium heat. "Remind me why waffles are better than pancakes?" Jared asked. "Because the waffles have holes into which you can pour blueberry syrup. But the syrup just drips out of pancakes," Anne explained with a smile, showing Gloria how to pour the batter into a hot waffle iron. "Miss Anne, why are you not married anymore?" Gloria suddenly asked when Anne closed the lid of the waffle iron. "What? Why do you think so?" Anne raised her eyebrows in surprise. "You don't have a ring," said Gloria, pointing to her left hand. "Wow, Jared, you have a very smart girl," Anne said, trying to change the conversation. "Yeah, you have to get up very early to fool at least one of my girls," Jared chuckled. "Well, Gloria, Mr. Tommy said he wanted to kiss other girls, not me," Anne said softly. "But if you are married, you should not kiss anyone except your husband," Gloria answered seriously. "Exactly," Anne agreed. "So are you kissing my dad?" Gloria continued. "Maybe," Anne answered with a smile. "Is this okay for you?" "Maybe," Gloria giggled. Kathleen had to have a certain amount of blueberry syrup on her plate, otherwise she wouldn't eat, and her omelet shouldn't have touched the waffles. In addition, the syrup should not have gotten on the eggs. "I like breakfast for dinner," Gloria announced. "We should do this more often." "I'm exhausted," Jared muttered, tired of having to customize Kathleen's plate to her exacting specifications. Late in the evening, a thunderstorm broke out. The thunder roared so loudly that the windows shook. Both girls screamed in fear, but they were soon reassured by Jared, who immediately appeared in their room, hugging them and holding them close. Anne joined them, and the four of them snuggled close together in Jared's bed. Gloria and Kathleen slept in the middle, flanked by two adults on either side. The storm moved on toward Baton Rouge, but everyone slept until the morning sun broke through the thick curtains. "Dad, I need to go to the toilet." Kathleen woke Jared up. "I'll take you," Anne offered. "Can you do this?" Kathleen asked incredulously. "I think I can," Anne said, holding back her laughter. They had an action-packed weekend. First the library, then the park, lunch at McDonald's, and for dinner pizza at Chuck E. Cheese's. On Sunday, they went to church, and then went fishing in a small channel of the Atchafalaya River. Jared had never seen a fish there, but the girls had fun casting their lines. When the girls were finally tired, they returned home, where Jared cooked fried fish and chips. Miss Anne kissed each of the girls 3 times goodbye after all. 3 whole days would pass before the next meeting. Jared took them to their grandparents, Rochelle's mom and dad. As usual, Rochelle flirted with Jared freely, and as usual, he ignored her. He kissed the girls goodbye and drove home. "Hey," Jared shouted as he walked into the house. "In the bedroom," Anne answered. "Bed," Jared began, entering the room. "We have 3 days left. We need to catch up," said Anne, lying on the bed completely naked. "God, honey, I love you," Anne exclaimed. "I love you too," Jared replied. Both screamed with pleasure. "Can I ask you something?" Anne asked, laying her head on his chest. "Of course," Jared replied, still trying to catch his breath. "Would you ever like to have your own children?" Anne asked carefully. "I already have 2, Jared answered simply. "No, I mean," Anne began, but Jared interrupted her. "Listen, I'll tell you something," he said firmly. Anne tensed, feeling that she might have gone too far. She stopped stroking his skin with her small hand. "Maybe I didn't get their mom pregnant," Jared said, squeezing her tighter. "But I was the one who took care of her. And I'm the one taking care of the girls now." Anne held her breath. Her little experience with men told her that this was the moment when Jared would either hit her or start screaming, telling her to get out of his bed, out of his house. But his hand only slid from her round buttock to her shoulders and got tangled in her blonde hair. His rough, calloused fingers gently intertwined in her short locks. "It's not about who's home, Anne," Jared said softly. "It's not she who makes a man a father." Anne felt his lips press against the top of her head. "I would love to have 2 or 3 more like Gloria and Kathleen," he said softly. "They are my life. I'll try to give you 2 or 3, but I'll have to talk to someone else about 19, Anne said cheerfully. "Oh, I don't know. We can get a couple of twins, maybe even triplets," Jared jokes. Jared Michael browsered. "I love you with all my heart," Anne said quietly. On the day they received the papers officially confirming that Anne was now divorced, Jared invited her to celebrate at the Acapulco Grand Restaurant. After dinner, Jared got down on one knee and asked Anne to marry him. The first thing they did was talk about Gloria and Kathleen's engagement. The girls were delighted, especially when Anne assured them that they would be part of the ceremony, they would be part of the wedding and the marriage. Rochelle smiled discreetly when Gloria announced that she would be the ring bearer at her dad's wedding. She also smiled and agreed that Kathleen would be a beautiful flower girl when Daddy married Miss Anne. "I'll scatter the petals for Miss Anne," Kathleen explained seriously her duties as a flower girl. "And every petal will lie where it should be," Jared teased her. Rochelle had a hard time keeping a smile on her face as she bathed the girls and made sure Gloria had done her homework and got her clothes ready for school. She kept her smile as she read them a bedtime story. But when she sat down at the kitchen table and opened a can of beer, her face darkened. "Well, it's entirely your fault," Rochelle's mother Connie said sternly as her daughter cried bitterly about how unfair it all turned out. "I know, Mom. Thank you for your support," Rochelle replied sarcastically. "Hey, hey, you shouldn't talk to your mother like that," Frances interrupted sharply. "It wasn't she who made you run and spread your legs." Later that evening, after Rochelle had drunk 5 beers of her father's beer, she texted Jared, "Please don't get married." Jared looked at the message, but didn't feel the need to respond. He put the phone back on the nightstand and smiled as he heard Anne, rather poorly but enthusiastically, sing along to one of Miranda Lambert's songs while taking a bubble bath. Over the next 3.5 weeks, Rochelle sent Jared several messages, begging and asking him to give her another chance. Jared didn't answer any of them, just as he didn't when Rochelle met him at her parents' house several times, sobbing and crying. On her wedding day, Rochelle tried to kill herself. Frances kicked down the bathroom door and saved her. "Remember," Kathleen said seriously to the Happyland kindergarten staff, "my mom will pick me up today." "How do you think this little girl always knows that today is her mother's day?" one of the employees asked the other. "Girl, I stopped trying to understand this child a long time ago," another woman laughed in response. "I just know that by 2:45 it's better not to stand in her way." Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story. because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.